Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Let's go to a place where what? Where genitals and gender roles successfully conflate, as well as other politics and trending news. And as always, you can join the show and chop it up by clicking the link in the comments. Click the link above. I can't spell today. Let's get it. Don't take my word for it. Look that mess up, please.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized. Learn to be active.
Looks like we got us another hit.
Did you tell her to get away from me? She's crazy.
Choose your destiny.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized. Learn to be active. Investigate both sides of the argument. Come up with your own conclusions.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien, bien. Podemos ayudarnos más? Si se puede. And don't take my word for it. Look that mess up. This has been produced for entertainment and or educational purposes. So use it for how you wish. Make sure you type something in your search bar every now and then, and maybe get some news from the other side or do a little bit of investigation yourselves. So maybe you could come up to your own conclusions instead of being fed by your algorithm. Anyway, so today we're going to start off with a place where genitals and gender roles successfully conflate. That is a Lupe Fiasco line, if you didn't know. Yeah, so the Bathroom Madness and Politics, that's the name of the show today. So I wanted to touch on the craziness related to the bathrooms and the politics of it all. So we're going to dig through that, let me start real quick with a clip. Donald Trump and Elon Musk from their recent little chat.
Well, her
so I
her
think
running mate approved, signed into legislation, tampons in boys' bathrooms. Okay, now
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
all
that's
I have
weird.
to hear. Tampons in
That's
boys'
weird.
bathrooms, and that means she believes in that too. I mean,
Yeah, that's
she
not
picked
okay.
this guy because he was the closest to her. A lot of people thought she'd pick sort of the opposite.
And we're seeing just an overnight propaganda attempt to rewrite history and make it sound like Kamala is moderate when she, in fact, is not moderate.
Well, the part about Kamala being moderate is one thing. She's definitely not far left. She's wherever she can get the votes, like many politicians, but I definitely wouldn't put her on the left. That's just where I see it. And the Tampon Tim nickname that Trump has given her running mate, I mean, it's kind of funny. Trump is pretty funny when it comes to those nicknames that he gives people. I think that this one kind of misses the mark a bit. But I mean, as long as it works, right? That's all that really matters. And a lot of people aren't going to take the time to dig into it. It's sensational, you know, and that's what gets clicks. That's what gets people going, you know, instead of focusing on the policies, you know, the economy, inflation. We're gonna focus on these kind of social, cultural type of issues. Let me play this clip right here for y'all.
But trans people should be able to use whatever restroom they want. Remember earlier when we saw someone who went through the racially segregated restrooms related to the trans exclusionary restrooms? Yeah. An argument as to why restrooms needed to be segregated by race was to protect white women, which is very similar to, for example, North Carolina's recent language about their restroom bill. North Carolina Lieutenant Governor Dan Forest said their law is worth it if it keeps one child or woman from being molested or assaulted. This ad from Houston showcases the same argument.
Houston's Proposition 1 bathroom ordinance. What does it mean to you? Any man at any time could enter a woman's bathroom simply by claiming to be a woman that day. No one is exempt. Even registered sex offenders could follow women or young girls into the bathroom, and if a business tried to stop them, they'd be fined. Protect women's privacy. Prevent danger. Vote no on the Proposition 1 bathroom ordinance. It goes too far.
Pretty scary, right? It's going to have an intended effect. This is from 3 years ago, by the way. So, but these kinds of ads have been showing their ugly head again recently. So, you know, stuff like this is going to have its intended effect. And when Trump says, you know, tampon Tim, and it's like, it's ridiculous to put tampons in boys' restrooms, I think most people would agree, as far as it's like, you know, that sounds pretty ridiculous on its face, you know. But like many things in life, when you look at it a little bit more, it's a little more nuanced, it's a little more complicated. It's not as simple as it sounds, you know. And a lot of times what it ends up being is the results of it tend to not be anywhere close to what the perceived intentions of it is. You know, the results end up being, you know, bad for the same people that they're trying to protect or whatever, you know. So like related to abortion, you know, the abortion rights, you know, intended to protect the children or whatever. I mean, not abortion rights, but causing, you know, a ban on abortion, you know, is it intended to protect the children or whatever. but in practice, it leads to women not being able to have, in some cases, life-saving health care. You know, those are the results that you get as a result of those um, abortion bans. So, and like that with this, it ends up being girls not being able to have access to, you know, sanitation materials. You know, the whole thing with like the gender roles and genitals conflating is a thing that, you know, I think that the trends of the times is what leads to people believing the way that they believe or whatever, but they don't tend to look at history properly or in context. Mostly because we're not taught history in context. We're taught to remember dates, you know, names, you know, stuff like that, events happening basically in a vacuum, you know. But if you look at history as trends, as fads, kind of cyclical, being that it comes back around type of deal, you know. And that's the reason why we always say, you know, they say never forget, because as soon as you forget, then it repeats. Because if you don't forget, you don't let it repeat. But it's like a lot of you guys out there are like blue for boys, pink for girls, you know, skirts for girls, pants for boys, this type of thing, hair extensions for girls, so forth and so on. But if you go back and look at your founding fathers here in the United States, a lot of them wore high heels, stockings, skirts, hair extensions. It was the thing. You know, it didn't mean that they were trying to be a girl or whatever. There was also, I was looking at a story about how they used to dress little kids, and they would dress boys in pink, babies, little boys, and they would dress little girls in blue. And that was a thing that actually happened. That was a real thing. So, like I say, gender roles and genitals conflating. You know, there's a spectrum when it comes to masculinity and femininity, okay? You have men who are feminine and you have women who are masculine. The femininity and masculinity is a scale that we all just fall somewhere on. And that doesn't necessarily relate to your sexual preference also, you know. So kind of taking the long way back around to the bathrooms is like, if some dude came into the girl's bathroom to use the restroom, it would be ridiculous and it would stand out and people would be like, what the hell are you doing in here? You know, the same will be true for a girl going into a boy's restroom. You know, one of the ways a lot of these big corporations have found ways around dealing with these issues is those what they call family restrooms, where it's like one person at a time and it has a lock on the door. So, you know, whoever can go in there. And it's like you go in there with your kids and you can lock the door or whatever. You know, anyone can use the restroom. It's kind of it doesn't have a gender. And those are the answers to avoid a lot of those situations where people can get angry or whatever. I am a single father. My daughter's mom passed away when she was like 2 years old. And I have ran into a lot of issues related to bathrooms as far as, you know, I have to help her in the restroom. She's only 3 years old. I don't want her to touch anything, you know. So I have to go in there and help her out. And so I can't take her into the ladies' restroom. It would be ridiculous. You know, I'd probably get arrested. So I would have to take her into the men's restroom. And I did that all the time. It was very uncomfortable, but you know, you take her into the stall or whatever, the back stall, and you have to do what you got to do. You close the little door, you lock the door, whatever. So it's like, what I'm trying to say is that if a man that looks like a woman, goes into the men's restroom, then the men are going to be looking around like, what the hell? If a woman that looks like a man goes into the women's restroom, people are going to be looking around like, what the hell? So what I'm trying to say is that you've had these people who are transgenders or whatever, you've had them forever, long before, nowadays where it's such a huge political deal. And these people use the restrooms that correlated with their identity, and it wasn't a big deal. It's just like we've made this thing into a political thing, I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but again, this is a small, like, what is it, 1% of the population? And out of that 1%, then maybe there's some of them that are like playing the role or whatever. I don't know, trying to be a peeping Tom or something like that. But I mean, for us to make this into such a huge issue, out of a percentage of 1% of the population, it seems pretty ridiculous to me. Let's go to an article. Let me see. This one, so we can clear this up, where all of this has come from right now. So this is Snopes. It says Tim Walz signed bill requiring tampons in boys' bathrooms, ? It says Snopes looks into the story behind the Minnesota governor's tampon Tim nickname. August 12th, 2024, by Anna Rasquet-Paz. Pretty funny. So the hashtag tampon Tim is trending. It's trending right now. I typed it in on Twitter and so much stuff popped up. Most of it is it's all coming from the right. So here it is. Claim Democratic Vice President nominee and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed a bill requiring schools to stock tampons in boys' bathrooms. Rating: mostly false. Context: Tim Walz signed a bill in 2023 that required Minnesota schools to stock free menstrual products in restrooms regularly used by students in grades 4 through 12. The language of the statute was gender neutral and therefore compelled schools to make menstrual products available to trans masculine, trans boys, and male presenting students, although that would not necessarily entail stocking them in boys' bathrooms. So the whole thing is this, where they're saying, they're putting tampons in boys' restrooms. And this one is saying that's not necessarily true. I saw a clip that said, best case scenario is a transgender person has access to, menstrual products in the bathroom of the gender they identify as. And then it's like the worst scenario is the boys use the tampons as they stick them in their nose and go in the bathroom and pretend to be a walrus. So it's like that joke is pretty funny to me, because it's like, at the end of the day, all of the hoopla and all of the anger related to this is kind of ridiculous to me, because if I go into the restroom and I see some tampons and I'm gonna be like, well, that's kind of weird, and then I would move on with my life. Like, it's not gonna have any impact on me at all. Like, what is it gonna do to the boys? But what I'm saying is, if you push against this kind of things, and then it results in the girls not having the access to this stuff. It's a good thing for the girls to have access to this stuff when they're in school. Emergencies happen. Maybe they wasn't they wasn't prepared. They didn't know they were going to start their cycle that day. It's a nice thing to have, basically, and it's weird how in the way in public schools, how we tend to not want these kids to have stuff like lunch, breakfast, access to menstrual stuff. And it's like, it's a nice thing. It's like, why do you want to create an environment that's hard on the kids? I mean, they have it hard enough living in this crazy world. Let's read on. It says, after Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris nominated Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate in 2024, rumors began circulating online that Walz had signed a law requiring Minnesota schools to stock tampons in boys' bathrooms. So, it says, Tim Walz, the VP selection for Kamala Harris, signed a bill allowing gender reassignment surgery for children and a bill requiring schools to stock tampons in boys' bathrooms. Donald Trump says he will ban gender reassignment surgery for children in all 50 states. The claim appeared several times on X, Reddit, and Facebook. The post had accumulated tens of thousands of views as of the writing and earned Walz the sarcastic moniker Tampon Tim. So this is where we are. And I bet hardly anyone dug into this enough to see that the language in the bill didn't say put tampons in boys' restrooms. It didn't say that. Libs of TikTok, hashtag tampon Tim. Flashback, Governor Tim Walz signed a bill requiring schools to provide tampons in boys' bathrooms beyond parody. And it's a political year. Things are getting crazy, and people, they post stuff like this. It goes trending. It gets clicks. It leads people to have conversations. In some cases, it leads people to vote differently. So it says menstrual products for menstruating students. Like, understand what that means. Menstrual products for menstruating students. So if it's a one identifying as a male but who menstruates, then that's what it's for. And also for girls who identify as girls and they menstruate. In 2023, Walz signed a school funding bill into law containing a provision that guaranteed access to free menstrual protection to Minnesota students from the 4th through the 12th grade. This legislation required all school districts and charter schools to stock menstrual products, and the language of the law was gender neutral. It reads, emphasis, a school district or charter school must provide students with access to menstrual products at no charge. The product must be available to all menstruating students in restrooms regularly used by students in grade 4 to 12, according to a plan developed by the school district. For purposes of this section, menstrual products means pads, tampons, and/or similar products used in connection with the menstrual cycle. So that is the language of the law right there. And it doesn't say put tampons in boys' restrooms. That's not what it says. It says, while the law did not specifically mention boys' bathroom, it also did not restrict the rule to female or girls' bathrooms. Paired with laws protecting children's access to gender-affirming care, this will require schools that do not provide gender-neutral restrooms to ensure such products to are available trans-masculine students, that is, students who are either trans boys or students born female whose gender expression is masculine, to access them. In theory, this could require the stocking of menstrual products in boys' bathrooms in some cases, though the editorial board of the Minneapolis Star-Tribune argued that is not the case. Critics contend wrongly that it mandates menstrual products in boys' bathrooms. This has unfortunately been used to stoke ongoing culture wars over transgender individuals, but the law actual language provides considerable flexibility for school districts to implement it, according to Deb Hinton, the executive director of the Minnesota Association of School Administrators. That might mean making these products available for free in various locations for all who need them, such as unisex bathrooms, girls' bathrooms, the school nurse, or the front office, but not necessarily in boys' bathrooms. Hinton, in an interview, lauded the local control the law provides for implementation and said she's fielded no concerns about its rollout. At Anoka Hennepin, the state's largest school district, the free products are not found in traditional male-only bathrooms, a spokesman said, but they are provided for free in non-gendered bathrooms. Girls' bathrooms are from health staffers. It said, but they are provided for free to all in non-gendered bathrooms, girls' bathrooms, or from health staffers. So basically, the bathrooms that have the lock where anybody can go into, the girls' bathrooms, and the nurse's office. So that's how it works in practice. And I mean, that's not as sexy and as entertaining as, you know, tampons in boys' restrooms. Headline, click. It says Tampon Tim goes viral. Megyn Kelly, the conservative television show and podcast host, whom former U.S. President Donald Trump once attacked for having a blood coming out of her, whatever, embraced the moniker Tampon Tim as criticism of his and other Walsh's policies archived. So it has the little clip. Tampon Tim is the name. That's it, Megyn Kelly. Biden was Obama's dead weight. Kamala is Biden's dead weight. Tampon Tim is Kamala's dead weight. Okay. So, and these people like Megyn Kelly, she's really smart, actually. Very intelligent person. So I'm willing to bet that she is being dishonest with this, knowing that this isn't really the case. But, you know, it doesn't matter. It's good. It's what works, you know. And see, a lot of these people, they know that people aren't going to take the time to look up stuff themselves. They think you're ignorant, you know. They think you're stupid. You know, that's what it is, man. It says, but in 2024, talk of administration was no longer taboo in the public and political sphere. Far from putting people off, the fact that Walsh supported such a law was, to many, a demonstration of empathy and good judgment, including from former Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, how nice of the Trump camp to help publicize Governor Tim Walz's compassionate and common sense policy of providing free menstrual products to students in Minnesota public schools. Let's do this everywhere. You know, and he did some really cool stuff as governor related to the kids getting breakfast and stuff like that. He was a teacher for many years. So he's got a heart for the public school and the students that are in public schools. I have a clip of some of the stuff he did, but I don't know where it is. Let's see. Let's play some of this video first, and then I'll see what I can find, if I can find it.
While the language has shifted away from race, using protecting women as an excuse for bigotry has remained constant. Many also argue that this isn't a trans rights issue, but a states' rights issue, much like what happened during the Civil Rights Campaign, where racist segregationists would argue that the federal government was overreaching when it tried to outlaw segregation in the South. To bring it all the way back, this rhetoric used against trans people echoes the same rhetoric used by the South when defending slavery. Something I've seen echoed across multiple sources I've used in this video is that this isn't really just about restrooms. While of course the restroom-specific aspects of this are important, Restrooms are a symbol and a gateway to public life. Those who can't use restrooms that are open and accessible to them are being isolated from much of social life in general. If you want to go anywhere, be it a road trip across a state or a trip downtown by a bus, you need to have access to safe, consistent, and convenient public restrooms. So that means enough toilets for homeless people, no super long lines for women's rooms, no restrooms that exclude people with certain disabilities, and letting trans people use the restrooms they need, if we even need gender-separated restrooms anyway. If we want to build better societies that can be inclusive to everyone, we can start at restrooms.
Yeah, so like the significance of the restrooms overall is really interesting. I have an article I kind of want to look at because historically the restrooms have been a way to further marginalized communities, you know, and it shows how much you're accepted into society, how much access you have to restrooms. There was a time where women couldn't, there was like no women's. It's still a problem in some buildings, some office buildings. You believe it or not, like that's crazy. Like no women's, like it's more men's restrooms in the building than women's restrooms, like some crazy shit like that. Like who'd have thunk it? Let's play some of the beginning of this video because I don't know where the part is that I'm looking for right now, but
I bet some of you watching right now are wondering how important the sociology of toilets actually is. I wondered that too, as someone who hasn't had to worry about not having access to a toilet. There are two reasons I made this video. Because toilets are actually incredibly important when it comes to who is allowed to participate in society, and because toilets have crossed over into almost every civil rights campaign. Women were the first battleground, then it was people of color in the American South. Now it's transgender people, those with disabilities, the homeless, and people in the developing world. One problem is that people don't tend to want to talk about toilets. A prolific writer on this topic is Clara Greed, who says this about toilets in one of her articles. In reality, the topic is not sexy or prestigious, and therefore toilets often appear low in the pecking order in terms of development priorities. I disagree.
yeah, we don't like to. I was reading somewhere, it's in the psychology in one of the classes I was taking. We was talking about how when we eat, we do it publicly and in groups or whatever, and when we poop, we do it privately. And it's like that may not seem like a thing, but it really is a thing related to the psychology of our species, if you will, and the way we move. Like it's pretty deep.
Agree. Toilets are incredibly sexy and incredibly important. We shit all the time, and it's about time we talked about it. So let's make toilets sexy, and let's talk about the sociology and politics of toilets.
I don't know how you're gonna make toilets sexy. How do you do that? Is that sexy right there? That's like a prison cell. That's another thing. So like, you know, in prison, it's a punishment, right? Like, cause see, there's no privacy, right? So you can't poop privately. The toilet is right there in the cell. You're gonna have cellmates there. Somebody's bunk is right next to the toilet. They don't have a toilet seat, so you're sitting right on the like toilet frame, and then the water that you drink comes out of the back of the toilet. So like, you know, if you feel like though, you know, it's the toilet situation or bathroom situation is not important, just imagine that, you know, if you've never been to prison where, you know, somebody is sitting there next to you, like it sucks for the person that's using the restroom and the other person that's on the bunk. Like we're both in an awkward as uncomfortable as position right now. I don't even mean to laugh at it because it's not really funny, but it's like, you know, it's pretty terrible. So like, you know, whenever you get in a house or an apartment or whatever, the number of bathrooms in there is a feature, right? How big the restroom is, that's a feature. It's like those prison cells are just big bathrooms, not even big bathrooms, but it's like a bathroom with a bunk in it.
2 billion people worldwide lack both toilets and clean water. In compact cities, you can sometimes see households with no adequate sanitation across the street from affluent households because of the vast wealth disparity. In Africa, 80% of the population need to go outside, and in India, 90% of surface water is filled with shit. Half of schoolgirls in Africa need to leave school when they start menstruating because they don't have adequate toilets at school. Many developing countries are under-toileted, where there aren't enough public or private toilets, and so people have to go on the streets, where women also receive much more scrutiny than men. So keep in mind, everything we're going to talk about in the rest of this video is much worse in the developing world than in places like the US. The earliest modern public restrooms were in Victorian Britain, and they were mostly for men. This was done to enforce the separate sphere idea, which argues that men and women should occupy different parts of society, like men should be in the workplace and women should be in the home. They argued that men were the only ones who need to go out for long enough to need a restroom anyway, and so why build any for women? Unlike men, women had to carefully plan their routes along places where friends or family lived so they could use their home toilets. This effect is what's called the bladder's leash. Women began to form activist groups for equality. Beginning in 1850 was the Ladies' Sanitary Association, who were only marginally successful, opening a few toilets.
That makes me think of that movie, The Green Book, where the guy, it was like segregated Jim Crow South. And this guy, he was a musician. He played piano. He was like a badass piano player. And they invited him to these like Victorian homes and so forth and so on, other venues to perform. But he had to he was traveling throughout the South to do these performances. So he needed this green book. The green book would tell him places where he could go, to get housing, like a room, and places where he could eat, and places where he could stop and use the restroom. He needed a guide because there were so many places that wouldn't allow, it was a black guy, he wouldn't allow him to use the restroom or get a room or get something to eat. So he needed that green book to guide him through the South. And therefore, that dictated how they took their routes through the South. So this is talking about women basically having to do the same thing.
During World War I, women were able to use their leverage from almost 1 million of them joining the workforce to petition their employers for adequate facilities. But because of the minimal workers' rights in Britain at the time, employers were still able to legally deny them, which finally changed in 1992 because of new workplace regulations. Even after women's restrooms started being built, women were charged to use them, and men weren't. After 1963, public restrooms weren't allowed to charge for use, but private restrooms still were. And after half a century of complaints that this was unfair to women, in 2011, the UK government showed that they were hearing the complaints and issued the Equality Act, which made it so that both men and women could be charged, which is totally what the activists wanted. It's not just that women don't have enough toilets, it's also that women need to use the toilet for longer and more frequently than men. Women are more likely to use public transport and have kids or elderly people with them. Cisgender women need the restroom even more because of things like menopause, menstruation, and pregnancy. This should make it clear that the goal isn't exactly an equal number of restrooms for everyone. It's almost a constant experience at movies and games and stuff like that the line for women's restrooms is much longer than the men's one, and they have an equal number of restrooms for everyone. One example of a country that's trying to fix this is Malaysia, who has twice as many toilets for women as toilets for men. If governments want women and men to be able to use public transport, work, and just live equally, then they need to make sure women don't have to worry about where they can use the bathroom.
What I've noticed is there are fewer, they'll have the number of restrooms, but they'll have fewer toilets in the restrooms. I noticed this in multiple restaurants where they took let's say in the men's restroom, there was 2 toilets, and then it had maybe 3 urinals and then 2 toilets, and then they would take out one of the toilets, and now it's just 1 toilet in there. And I've seen that in more than one restaurant. And then in the ladies' restroom, it'll be like only 2 toilets or whatever in there. So 1 toilet in the men's restroom and 2 in the ladies' restroom. So he's talking about the line of women coming out of the to get into the restroom. In the men's restroom, like I say, the 1 toilet and 3 urinals, then 4 people can use the restroom at once. In the women's restroom, with only 2 toilets, then only 2 women can use the restroom at once. So there is a thing. There is a thing with that. Like, I don't know what the reason is behind it. Maybe it has to do with like water conservation, because they've been changing all the toilets, all of this green energy type of stuff is leading to them changing the toilets and the way that they flush and so forth and so on. So maybe that's a way to work towards that. But I don't think that's cool, though. It ultimately just leads to a situation where you have people like struggling. You know what I mean? You got an emergency, you got to take care of business, and you got to stand in line like that is. And if you're at a place, like if you're at a nice place and that happens, that feels like you are not being taken care of very well. Like your service isn't good. You know what I mean? And that can lead you to not want to return to that place in the future. So I don't understand what their logic is in that. I guess they just train people to deal with stuff, right? You just like, if it's the same way everywhere you go and it just sucks and you just got to deal with it. It's like it's training us to deal with this kind of stuff.
In the American South before the Civil Rights Act of 1964, it was legal to racially segregate everything from bathrooms to restaurants. While proponents at the time argued that the facilities might be separate, but they're still equal in quality, we all know that's bullshit. Alex Shen describes this really well in their Medium article about the many ways restrooms have been segregated. Quote, "The design of these spaces is particularly interesting because designated colored areas were shitty as fuck. What's interesting is a lot of the things we talked about last section, like the bladder's leash, applies here. In her article in The Progressive, Elizabeth Ann Thompson talked about going on road trips as a child in the Jim Crow South. She talks about not being allowed in gas station restrooms and having to bring toilet paper and go on the side of the road. She also talks about how the rhetoric used against transgender people in restrooms sounds the same as the one used against African Americans, but we'll get to that later. There's a great Vox video on this exact subject, so if you want to learn more about what's in this section, I'll link their video here.
So the part with access to people who are shorter or people who have they're in wheelchairs or stuff like that, that's another thing. So it's dehumanizing is the word. So, it makes you feel some kind of way when, you can't reach the sink to wash your hands or whatever, Anyways, I don't want to keep going with this. Let's look at this article. It sums this up. Basically the same thing that the video was trying to say here. So Political Magazine, it says how the bathroom war shaped America. I think this is the right one. I think this is the right one. It says it's not just North Carolina. Some of America's great political struggles have pivoted around who uses the toilet. This is from 2016. It says, let's read a little bit. There seems to be no more controversial place in American life right now than the public restroom. It's become the latest battlefield in the culture wars, an issue so electric that the most powerful politicians in the country have weighed in. So they're going to go, because this is from 2016. It says President Barack Obama, Attorney General Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Ted Cruz, and Donald Trump. In 2016, at least 15 states have considered bathroom bills. Similar legislation recently enacted in North Carolina which blocks transgender people from using bathrooms that don't correspond to the sex listed on their birth certificates. Opponents of these proposals have urged that the real impetus isn't restroom protocol. It's part of an ugly attempt by social conservatives to score a victory against surging LGBTQ movement. So yeah, corresponding with the sex listed on their birth certificates, it's like, how are you going to enforce that? You're going to force the people to carry around their birth certificates, or are you going to, inspect the goods? Like either one of those is pretty ridiculous. So, you would have a difficult time being able to enforce these things. And that's the reason why these don't work. It says, but it would be a mistake to see the bathroom bills as nothing more than a desperate last-minute counterpunch against an ascendant gay rights movement. There's a forgotten history at play. For as long as public restrooms have existed, they've been a political flashpoint. For generations, Americans have imparted bathrooms with their deepest anxieties about changing social norms and practices. From the Industrial Revolution to Jim Crow to women's libs to today, restrooms have been a proxy for political fights on almost every major issue in American life: race, class, gender, crime, sexuality, you name it. So yeah, when you're like the class part, you got money, the restrooms are really nice, you go to a really nice place and the bathrooms are really nice. One of the things I noticed about restrooms too, related to that, is those air dryers, and as it's like technology moves forward and people are like, oh, this is really cool with the air dryers or whatever, but you go to a really nice place, they don't have those air dryers in there. Okay, they have towels or they have napkins. Okay, because those air dryers suck. They suck so bad. They dysfunction all the time. They don't really dry your hands. It's this there's sanitary issues related to it. So yeah, the class issue of the restroom, like, it's bigger, it's cleaner, it smells nice, it has towels or napkins in there, very nice soap dispensers, hot and cold water. That's another one. Some of the restrooms won't have the hot water really in there. Like, that's an issue. It's only one spout, it's only one deal. It's really cool how you stick your hand underneath it and the water comes out without you having to turn the knob, but it's like cold. So like, you don't feel very clean. Like, anyways, where did I stop? It says, much like our current foray, past bathroom brawls drew the involvement of marquee figures for those eras: President Jimmy Carter, Governor Ronald Reagan, President Lyndon Johnson, Reverend Martin Luther King, Phyllis Schlafly, among others. In the past, if the past is any guide, we shouldn't count on the current struggle over restrooms for transgender people being easy or quick. In fact, bathrooms have proven a surprisingly powerful political lever over the years. They've been pivotal in many political arguments, and in perhaps the most masterful harnessing of bathroom anxiety in American history, are largely invented controversy over unisex bathrooms in the 1970s, ultimately killed off the almost enacted Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. So wow, the unisex bathrooms was such a big deal, it almost killed the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution. So, going back, and then, when you look at history and you see how things, like presently, it doesn't seem very ridiculous. The argument related to the bathrooms, like the tampons in the boys' restroom and stuff like that. Like, but what the hell, if a unisex bathroom, and I'm sure it was showing videos just like the one I showed at the beginning of this one, where there's going to be a man in there in the women's bath, or, in the unisex bathroom, and he's going to be sexually assaulting women or whatever. Like, That's not a thing. And because those unisex bathrooms have a lock on them and it's one person at a time. Like, you know what I mean? Like if someone's in there, then that means that the door is locked. If you walk in and someone's in there, then you go back out and you wait for them to be finished. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm sure they were saying, oh, these unisex bathrooms, it's going to lead to sexual assaults and da da da. It's like, and it had a lot of power over people in the 70s. It's like, no, the restroom has to be for men or for women. You can't have a restroom that's unisex. Like, what is that? That is ridiculous. Like, it's just a restroom with a lock on it. That's all it is. It's, one person at a time, whatever gender they may be. Like, it's not complicated. Oh no, that's ridiculous. It says, for more than 100 years, Americans have projected their most profound fears about social change onto public restrooms. And just as we've seen in the 2016 campaign with Ted Cruz running an ad that asks, should a grown man pretend to be a woman be allowed to use the same restroom used by your daughter, your wife? Women's restrooms especially have borne the brunt of these fears. As public restrooms emerged in the 19th century, American men and women both viewed ladies' rooms as public extensions of the home, a safe spot where women could escape the outside world and its dangers. As the number of women working in factories and mills increased, so too did cultural anxieties about ladies leaving the protection of their privacy of the domestic sphere. Governments started making bathrooms their business, enacting laws requiring sex-segregated public restrooms, beginning with Massachusetts in 1887. By 1920, 43 other states have put similar laws on the books. Oh, shoot, I've been missing comments. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. A. Smith, you still here? Peace and love. Doc says unisex. I'm sorry, y'all, man. I didn't see him. A. Smith, he says, I put tampon and cigarette butts up my nose when I played rugby and broke my nose several times. He says super glue for deep cuts, but it burns like a mofo. Oh, does that really work, super glue? He says, honestly, you have to pick your battles, and the only applies to people always going out and about. I'm a homebody and have everything I want within these walls. I'm pretty homebody also. And I'm really uncomfortable using public restrooms like to poop. I really will hold it for the most part till I get home because I prefer to use my restroom. Which sometimes it kind of sucks because you got to like plan that. Like taking a trip to the house just to poop. I've done that. A. Smith, he says, I go to friend's house if I want to socialize. Yeah, I'm like that too. He says, in the movie Demolition Man, they used seashells to poop. I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Did they do it publicly? I remember that movie, but I don't remember that detail. He says, or a bathroom attendant. He says, you mean spraying pee all over a bathroom while drying my hands is gross? Ha ha ha. Yes, that's gross. He says, I'm here. Well, thanks for being here, bro. I really appreciate your support, bro. Like, you're the OG. I probably pretty much lost everybody else. They thought I was going to come from the right with this, but I can't help but to see things the way I see it. And that's the reason why I have audience from the left and from the right, because I'm just going to see it how I see it. I'm not thinking of it from the left or from the right or whatever. What makes sense, what's truthful, that's what I'm going for. Like, regardless of if it like supporting Trump on some stuff that he proposes or policies that he's done, or if it means supporting Biden or Harris on something that they have policies they have put forth or whatever. You know, I don't have a dog in this race. I feel like it's two wings, same bird anyways. You know, good cop, bad cop at the end of the day. You know, the corporations win and the people lose, regardless if it's a Republican or a Democrat in office. You know, and there's so much corruption, there's so much money in politics. You know, it's, you know, how much power your vote really has. I don't really have much faith in that. You know, I think that if you're gonna save your community, you're gonna have to do it yourselves. You can't wait for somebody to come and be your savior. Jesus is not coming back, bro. Like, they've been waiting for thousands. What is it, 2,000 years for Jesus to come back? It hasn't happened, y'all. So, you know, maybe he's gonna come back at some point or whatever. But until then, you need to take care of business on your own. Like, period. Like, whatever it is that you feel passionate about, go and do that thing and have some kind of impact in that thing. You know, organize within your community and try to improve that thing in your community. You know what they say: think globally, act locally. That's the answer. I follow politics. I'm really into it. Politics is like my sports. I don't really watch sports. I watch politics. And, you know, it's been like that for a while for me. But as far as like local elections do matter. And that's the reason why I think that the media overplays the presidential election. You know, that's the one where your vote matters the least, without a doubt. Like, I don't have a doubt in my mind that part is true. Your vote matters the least in the presidential election. Your local elections is where your vote has the most weight. And overall, your vote is a pacifier to keep you waiting for the next election while they freaking run out the bag. The only way things have ever really changed is people in the streets. That's it. Off with his head. That's the only way, bro. They gotta have fear. They're not afraid of the people. Your vote doesn't cause any fear to them. People in the streets is scary to them. So that's why you have had conservative presidents who have passed very liberal legislations, because they had their conservative views and they weren't with it. But you had hundreds of thousands of people in the streets. He got to do something. He got to make a move. That's pressure. So doesn't matter, man, that much to me or whatever. Let's read a little bit more. It says, in the decades that followed, changes in the 20th century middle-class American homes similarly shaped attitudes and laws regarding public restrooms. Following World War II, suburbia blossomed, and white middle-class American families moved into new homes that exhibited luxuries previously unavailable to only the upper class, including multiple restrooms. Ooh, how many restrooms? What is the square footage of your place, dude? How many bathrooms do you have? Are those full or half baths? Do they have standing showers or do they have bathtubs? It says, now middle-class parents can enjoy master bathrooms with separate, more modest accommodations for their children. Yeah, so I have the master bath. The children use the half bath on the other end of the dormitory. The master bath has full body mirrors with lighting. Anyways, let's move on. It says, in some homes, parents have assigned their sons and daughters different bathrooms to avoid any improper moments between the children. These changes strengthen the idea that the bathroom should be a zone of personal privacy, but also endowed bathrooms, even in anodyne suburban homes with a latent sexual charge. So yeah, in your house, I don't know that your bathroom should have a sexual, like in your apartment or your house. You know, is it you men's restroom, women's restroom? Do you have it like that? I mean, I have my daughter's restroom is closest to her room, and it's on the other end of the apartment. I have my restroom. All the guests that come over use my restroom. I don't know that there's a gender assigned to it, you know, but I do know that when you live in an apartment and it's like, I don't know, 10 of y'all in there and it's like 2 bathrooms, and then it's like there's a problem because, you know, it's time to get up and go to work and go to school. Everybody needs to use the restroom to do what they need to do, and that's a problem. So that's like the luxury of having multiple bathrooms, but I don't see the gender. I'm gonna read on. It says, such attitudes help shape white resistance to desegregation of public spaces, restrooms included, during the civil rights movement. In the Jim Crow South, white racism branded black men as sexual predators, imperiling the virtue of white women. With both women seen as their accomplices, integrated restrooms pose a threat. Unclean and over-sexualized black men would be proxy, have access to white women. So it's the same argument. You know, it's the same argument that they're using right now with the transgenders bathroom situation. You know, they're going to sexually assault these women in the bathroom. Like, it's the same play. You know, it really gets old. It's like you playing football and you do sweep right. You know, how boring would the football game be if every play they did a sweep to the right? And in politics, that's what it is. They call the same play over and over again, and we forget. And you know what's crazy? If they call a sweep right and it works every time, like, of course they're going to keep on calling the sweep right because it keeps working. And it's like you forgot what play they called last time, or you think this time this is going to be the time where they're going to call a different play. How does it work on y'all? How does the same play continue to work on y'all? That's what I don't understand. Let's read a little bit more. It says, in 1961 Turner versus Randolph case, the city of Memphis, Tennessee employed this exact rationale in opposing the desegregation of restrooms in its public library. The public welfare was at stake, the city argued, because venereal diseases were commonplace among blacks, and an integrated ladies' room would put white women at risk of catching VD from black women. OMG. During this era, segregationist literature across the South told parents to keep their daughters home from integrated schools lest they catch VD from young black women now using the school restrooms. In Mississippi, one white second grade teacher worried that if her school integrated, her white students would contact syphilis from toilet seats used by black children. Well, if you use black people toilets, you're going to catch a sexual disease, bruh. Just hold it till you get home. Mom, but I really got to go. Ma, I peed on myself today. Why'd you pee on yourself today? You're too big for that. Well, you told me not to use the restroom where the blacks do. Okay, good job. Good job, son or daughter. You did the right thing. Go take a shower. You stink. At the same time, public fears about a homosexual menace overtaking the nation stoked alarm that young boys faced sexual danger in public restrooms. A police crackdown on same-sex sexual activity in men's restrooms in the 1950s and 60s. This at the time when many Americans equated homosexuality with pedophilia, deepened these worries. There goes the same playbook again, you know, the homosexuality correlated to pedophilia. Yeah, that is a thing that they continue to use. The thing about the restrooms, you know, I was really kind of surprised about the gay restroom thing. I wasn't aware of that, you know, because it was, you know, the guys there in the closet. And so the restrooms were places where they go. And apparently they still do this. That is kind of strange to me, but hey, I am not privy to that information or that lifestyle or that thing. But let's go back to this video because he talked about that in this video. I was gonna skip over it because it's awkward to say the least. But let's do it. Let me see the comments. He says, "You the OG, I'm just behind you. I was told who I was going to vote for when I went in the army at 18 years old. Never voted because of this." Yeah, that's some crazy shit. Be like, bruh, you voting for such and such. Like, Lieutenant, I don't agree with his politics, sir. Sir, Lieutenant, I don't agree with his politics, sir. You gonna vote for who I tell you to vote for. You in the United States military. Your politics is my politics. Our politics is the same. That's some crazy stuff right there. I could never. My brother and my dad was both in the Air Force, and I knew from a kid, I was like, I'm not doing this, bro. Like, I don't like people yelling at me, telling me what to do. I don't like doing unnecessary stuff. Like, what do they say? Oh, how does it go? Early is on time. No, that's not the one, because I like that actually. The one where it's like, hurry up and wait. That's the one. I have a problem with that shit. Like, rush, hurry up, do. Now stand around for 2 fucking hours. Like, what the hell was we rushing for 2 hours ago? And we just go stand here. Like, my brain hurts. That hurts my brain. I can't deal with stuff that's illogical. It says, I joined in May 99. It was in Korea, October 99. Damn, they got you in quick, huh? Yeah, man. I have one of those triangle-shaped flags in my closet from when my dad died. They gave it to me, and I still keep it. As much as I've, have mixed feelings about the American flag, because when I look at the flag, I think about slavery, bro. I think about blood and death, explosions. I know some people think freedom when they look at the flag. That's not what I see when I see it. But I'm still an American. I was born and raised in America, and I do have love for the land I was born on. So again, mixed feelings. Let's do this because I really didn't know about this. So maybe this will be informative to others too, as awkward as it is.
Before gay sex was legalized in many places, public restrooms were one of the only places gay men could meet other gay men. There's an old slang word for this, cottaging, because the restrooms these guys would hook up in were called cottages. This one article from The Independent from 1998 said that a large amount of people who frequent these places started when they were teens to explore their sexuality in private in a society that wouldn't accept them publicly. Sometimes they would develop certain foot motions to signal to someone in the next stall that they were down, or that someone not in the loop was coming. One example of people who weren't in the loop is Queen's University, who tried and failed multiple times back in 2006 to prevent this. They thought to lock them at night or even install cameras to see who was going in, but eventually decided to just close them entirely. At the time this article was published, the restrooms had been closed for 2 years. This one park in 2006 was having the same issues. The police were trying to stop it, but they were sure that they weren't being homophobic. There is a problem with public sex in Markeaton Park, but we do not want to demonize the gay population, because it is not just gay people who use the toilet for sex. Don't know how much the police's word on anything is worth in general, but especially in this case, because a member from a gay support group said that the police need to apply the law to straight and gay people equally, so...
Yeah, I don't know what you could possibly do about that. Like, people going to the restroom and having sex. Like, I mean, and what do you care anyways? Like, I mean, I don't really, I mean, I guess if, you're going to the park and you're taking your kids to the restroom and somebody's in there scootily pooping, I guess you'd have a problem with it, Be like, bro, I'm beat somebody up, you know, in that situation. But it's like, other than that, I mean, I really just don't see it. I mean, like, especially like the gay sex restroom thing. It's like, I'm just gonna leave back up out of there and be like, this is obviously not the place for me. I'm obviously in the wrong, you know, restroom or whatever. Like, come on, that's why I hold it till I get home anyway. I don't need no awkward situations like that. But I don't know. It's kind of weird how, you know, conservatives, they're conservative and they want to hold up family values, you know, conservative family values for their family, and then they want to tell other people what to do in their homes and their bathrooms and their bedrooms and stuff. That's really weird to me because it doesn't seem like it fits with the conservative perspective. It's like, you know, I kind of understand better when you say the liberals are trying to spoon feed people, and like, they're the worst. You know, oh, you can't do it on your own, so we have to help you, you know. It's never going to be right for you, so we're going to try to give you this tokenism and this incrementalism to make you feel better about your life or whatever, you know. And you can't do it on your own, so we're going to do it for you type stuff. Like, you know, them reaching into, you know, others is like, it makes sense or whatever. But on the conservative side, it really doesn't make any sense for them to be like telling other people what to do in their bathroom. If your ideology is conservatism, it doesn't fit in that ideology. I'm almost ready to move on from this. Do we want to read some more of this article? I think I want to move on from this. Y'all got any comments on the tampon Tim? Let's look at let's play a little bit of this one. Accomplishments of tampon Tim. Hopefully this one covers it. Let's see.
Spot in the first place.
Harris's running mate, Governor Walz, must now introduce himself to the rest of America.
And Caroline Cummings shares some of his big political headlines.
Governor Tim Walz could be trading Minnesota's capital city for the nation's capital next year if he and Kamala Harris win over Americans at the polls this fall. But that record in St. Paul helped propel him to this spot in the first place. Walz acknowledged this last week when asked about the VP vetting process.
Policies that are improving people's lives, and I recognize that I'm being looked at because of the body of work that includes a whole lot of people.
A person close to the selection process tells CBS News that his executive experience as governor did play a role in Harris's decision to tap him as a running mate. In the last 2 years, with total Democratic control of the state capitol, he signed into law many progressive wins, codifying abortion rights, paid family leave, universal free breakfast and lunch for kids in school, and long-sought gun restrictions. He's also had to help broker bipartisan deals when power in the legislature was shared between Democrats and Republicans during his first term.
There's no doubt that Governor Walz brings a significant track record as governor.
Let's go back a little bit because these are issues that we argue about on this show all the time. So let me see. Let's take it back a little bit.
Many progressive wins, codifying abortion rights, paid
in the state. So, you know, legalize abortion by the state.
Family leave, universal
paid family leave. That's a freaking big one. Like everyone gets that. Like, you know, in Western nations, like everyone has that. Like, I don't know why that's controversial at all. Like, you know, the mom wants to stay home longer than 3 weeks after she has a baby. You know, maybe the father wanted to stay home with the baby when they first born. You know, like this is an important as point in the life of that child. You know, and how much impact does it have, you know, on that child's development to have the parents home with them to make sure that they're good, you know? And how much does it help the parents, you know, to be there for the child, but not only that, but to not have to pay for somebody else to take care of the child, and the anxiety of being separated from the child and worried that they're going to actually get the care that they need to get. Like, I don't see why anybody would have a problem with this, but that shows that we're captured by the, you know, the corporations, because the corporations are the only ones that will have a problem with it. But see, what people forget is corporations are made up of people. You know what I mean? Like, it's everyone in that company, you know, is a person, and everyone in that company could possibly, you know, have a child, you know, one way or the other, being the father or being the mother. So, but what's crazy about that, but you know that the executives, they take their time. You know what I mean? They might take a year off or 2 years off when their child is born. You know what I mean? Like, it's the lower you are on the rung, the least time that you're going to get to be with your child when they're born. So it's just like another way to tell you, to make you remember that you are not, you know, you're expendable. You're not as important as these other folks. Like, you know, you better get back to work in 3 weeks. Like, you know, you can stay home with the kid or whatever, but you're not going to get paid. I don't know how you're going to pay your bills.
Universal free breakfast.
Plus, your job might not be here when you come back. And that happens a lot for moms. Really messed up. You wanted to stay home with your kid. Now you don't even have a job. Got to go look for a new job.
Leave universal free breakfast and lunch.
That's another one, universal free breakfast and lunch. I don't understand why this one is controversial either. Like, the kids are hungry, bro. Like, they're kids. They can't pay bills. They don't have a job. Like, can we, the kids, like, you know, wasn't it like that in the past? How did we get to the point? You know, I mean, like, where we're like, screw those kids. The parents are just going to spend their money on cigarettes and drugs. If we feed the kids, like, God, I don't understand that stuff. I don't understand how that's controversial. Help me understand that.
Lunch for kids in school and long sought gun restrictions. He's also had to help broker bipartisan deals when power in the legislature was shared between Democrats and Republicans during his first term.
There's no doubt that Governor Walz brings a significant track record as governor here in the state, particularly over the last 2 years. A historic amount of legislation and spending happened.
University of Minnesota politics professor Larry Jacobs says Walz also brings his knowledge of Capitol Hill to the ticket, having served southern Minnesota in Congress for 12 years.
So he was in Congress too. Comments. Smith says all kids should eat. You know, I grew up hungry, bro. I grew up a hungry kid. Like, so I could shed a tear right now. I don't like to see people hungry. Like, whenever someone is hungry, I'm willing to feed them because I know what it feels like to be hungry, man. And that is such a horrible thing to do to a child, is to leave them freaking hungry, man. Like, how the hell can they focus on, you know, their studies and doing a good job when they're freaking starving? A lot of these kids, the only halfway decent meal they get is at school. They go home and there's nothing to eat at the house. You know, they're waiting for that lunch. They're waiting for that breakfast, bro. Like, a lot of kids. And it's not because the parents are lazy or sorry or whatever, bro. Like, they're on a fixed ass income, bro. Like, all their bills, all their money go into bills. Damn, grocery prices going up like crazy. Rent prices going up like crazy. You blaming the parents for that? Y'all haven't given the minimum wage increase since the 90s? You know, but the parents are lazy and they're spending their money on cigarettes. He says, only in high school did I get spoiled with Pizza Hut and Taco Bell in the cafeteria. Yeah, they're taking that away from the kids. My daughter says that at her school, there's no vendors at all. They took them away. And that's pretty sad, because when I was in high school too, you know, it's embarrassing. It's like a stigma to get, which is stupid, and you know, but it reflects our society. But it's like a stigma to get into the free lunch line, you know, they've made it that way. You know, if it was free for everybody and it wasn't like, okay, your parents don't make enough money, so then you get to have free lunch. But if your parent makes over a certain amount of money, then you don't get to get free lunch. That's what causes that stigma on all the kids that are in the line to get the free lunch. Just make the damn lunch free for everybody and make the food decent. And then boom, there won't be no stigma on that standing in line. But it was when I was in high school, and yeah, I would have, like, my dad gave me a couple of dollars. He was one of the ones that fell in that category where he made just a little bit too much to qualify for free lunch. And yeah, like $5 or something like that. And I'd get some cheesy fries. I would get that like every day. We had the vendors, and it was like $2 or $3 or something like that for some cheese fries, you know, because I had to spend the other couple of dollars on catching the bus back and forth to school every day. Smith says, I grew up in Butler Housing Projects, Fort Worth, Texas. My family are drunks, and I had to work at bodegas to eat, but this was the 80s. Says, I had to wash my clothes in the tub. I've been there too, bro. Like my mom, I bouncing back and forth between my mom and my dad when they split up. And my mom really had chemical dependencies, if you will. Yeah, so, and school clothes. I didn't really get school clothes until I got a job. And then I could buy my own clothes. I worked at Jack in the Box in high school. I finally was able to buy clothes. That's why I'm so particular about that with my kids. Like I went school shopping for my two daughters a week ago, and I spent like $600 or more to get them the stuff that they wanted to get. And it's like, you know, I'm really particular about that, making sure that they get what they want, because I didn't. I just want to break the chain. I just, you know, I'll go broke for them. I don't want them to feel the way I felt. It had an impact on my life, you know. I had a girlfriend in like 11th grade, and we talked all the way through the summer and got really close. And then when school started, I didn't have any fucking clothes. So, like, you know, the first day of school, you dress up real nice. You dress up in the church clothes and your church shoes and stuff like that. And that's what I did. But then after that, I didn't have any freaking clothes to wear. So I avoided her that whole fucking year. And I really regret that to this day, because I was embarrassed. And washing the clothes in the tub, I've been there. Says, I remember standing in line at the bread store for free bread. I remember the government cheese. I remember the cheese line. He says, I feel bad if I don't provide for my son. I feel you. Yeah, man, I got to give them what they need, like over the top. And I think like the daughter, where her mom passed away, I think she's pretty damn spoiled, because I can't help it. Like, she already don't have a mom. So I just be like, it's really hard for me to tell her no with anything that she asks for. Sometimes I do tell her no. It like, and she's stunned. She's like, no? It's like she's really stunned when I tell her no, because I hardly ever do. It's a struggle. It's a real struggle, because I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, because I don't have that other person to bounce that really cares about her, to bounce those ideas off of, to make decisions about her life. And I don't know if I'm wrong or not. And I really, really, really struggle with that. Like, am I being too nice? You know, am I messing up her life by being too nice? Let's watch a little more of this.
He knows how Washington works. He's a guy who knows about governing.
Caroline Cummings, WCCO News.
Democrats praise Walz's progressive record.
But opponents are already taking aim and taking shots at his track record as Minnesota governor. Anoka County voted against Walz for governor in 2022. In downtown Anoka today, some criticize his handling of the turmoil following the murder of George Floyd. Others critiqued his stance on gender-affirming care and gun control. While these have been common attacks in Minnesota, some feel they will quickly become attacks for Republicans nationwide.
to be anything associated with gun laws, anything associated with Minneapolis and the riots that happened there, and any sort of property damage or anything that he did or didn't do that they thought he should have done are definitely going to be some major vectors that he's going to have to answer for to them.
Yeah.
Welcome to Democracy Now! Democracy.
Yeah. So I don't know. They calling Tim Moss like progressive and trying to use that as a slur is not working for the people on the left because they like that stuff. Okay. So like
in the first place.
What's crazy is when the Democrats are trying to get the center folks or whatever. So then it's like, oh, it looks bad. We're not center. We're, you're not, they aren't going to shave off Trump supporters. Trump voters are not going to switch sides and vote for Kamala. Like, it's not going to happen. So that is really kind of silly to try to think that way. If they really want to win, then they should placate to the left. They'll get voters over there. The people who have been feeling like they've been left out, the people who's choosing not to participate in the politics, those people who aren't voting, the ones who are staying home on their couch, the ones who aren't motivated, those are the ones that you want to get up and come to the polls, and that will get you the election. But those, trying to move people from Trump voters to switch over to Kamala Harris, that's not going to happen. I mean, you maybe get a few people like that, not enough to win. It's a large percentage of folks who don't vote. That's who you want. And they're going to get up and vote when it's something that these people, they don't vote for personalities. They vote for stuff that they feel like is going to have an impact on their life. So if you tell them, hey, we have this policy that's going to help you in your life, if you vote for us, like, that's where they need to be focusing on. Pat says, you just have to have those real conversations with her. She will understand better, especially when she have similar experiences. I talk to her all the time, like straight up 100% without holding back. And I just hope that, she's prepared as much as she can with dealing with life. That's what I'll be worried about. And that's why I don't hold anything back. I'm 100 with her. I don't want her to be in a situation where she's surprised or whatever. Smith, my son is 17, just got a car. I was against this, but I told him I'd fill up his tank every 7 days. He calls after 2 days for gas money, and I tell him, is he an unpaid taxi? My daughter's 17 too, bro. We got kids the same age. She don't have a car though. And talking about teaching her how to drive, but I want her to be motivated and do it as far as like remind me, to help her with that or whatever. But I'm not. It's scary out there, so I'm kind of scared for her to really be just driving around the city, not only with just the wrecks, but it's just like these house parties and all of the crazy stuff that's going on. If she has to catch the bus or she has to have me pick her up or whatever, that's going to limit her a bit. And I just feel better. I mean, as bad as that sounds, I just feel kind of better about that. Plus, I don't have no money for no car. Like, my car is old. Once I get me a car, then she can have a car. How about that? It says $80 should fill up a 2010 Scion and should last a week. I completely agree, bro. That if that's not lasting a week, this dude is driving to Galveston every day. Pat says Kamala has comedians to shame black voters. Yeah, the Democratic tactics are pretty freaking strange. They keep using that weird word, right? They're all on. They all got behind closed doors and was like, let's call them weird. Drinking game. Every time you hear the Democrats say weird, take a sip. Says, that's why I like you, Young King. Honesty of everything. I try to keep it 100 with everybody at all times. It's a crazy world we live in. You get punished for being honest and truthful and standing on your convictions. You get to run for president when you don't have no spine and you just tell people what they want to hear. It's like truth doesn't matter anymore. Character integrity doesn't matter. Maybe it has never, but it's always has with me. And it could be left over from growing up pretty damn religious. And it hurts me all the time. It's like the Dave Chappelle skit where it says keeping it real goes wrong. Me keeping it real goes wrong all the time, man. All the time. I could have so much more success in my life if I could just lie a little more. And I really, really struggle with that. Sometimes I'd be telling myself, bro, just lie, bro. You know they want you to just lie. That's why I suck in interviews. I cannot interview well. Like, I'm like, what do they want me to say? Like, it's some really, really silly ass question that's just like, I don't know what y'all want me to say, bro. Doc says they're trying to use weird because that's what most young nerdy type people were called. They're trying to use the good old. I get it. I get it, I guess. I know, but it's just weird that they keep using weird all the time. Like, it really jumps out to me. Like, it was like it happened overnight too. Like, just like, I don't know. I did a show. I think it was 2 weeks ago, whatever, did a show. And that's when I noticed that they were using weird so much. It just happened overnight. Like a little while after Kamala Harris, was officially the nominee, they started using weird. It's like they changed tactic. And I think that's what's throwing Trump off. Trump is thrown off really heavily. And you can't really, I understand it because he's like, bro, I was going against Sleepy Joe last week. This guy who's old and not thinking right, who can't walk upstairs. And, I'm like, I'm a shoe-in for this. And then they throw Kamala in and she's a woman. And then she's a woman of color. And then it's like, what the hell, bro? We done already spent a bunch of money on ads. Now we got to change everything, bro. Like, they did the bait and switch on their ass. Trump is like, bro, that's not fair. We're going to sue y'all on ads. Pat says, all the news stations are on code and sound so repetitive except for Fox News. I mean, a better way of saying that is all the liberal media is on code and all of the conservative media are on code. So both sides, because the liberals are on this weird thing and the conservatives are on this tampon Tim thing. Ever since Trump said that, like, that's across the board on the conservative side. Says I'm not weird equals you're weird. Yeah, it's like a what do they call it? There's a psychology for that. I can't think of it right now. Because if you don't fit in, I mean, if I fit in, then that means you don't. And if you don't, if I don't fit in, that means you do, or whatever. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Napoleon Dynamite defense. Yeah. Because it's a weird word. Smith says it used to be queer. Yeah, that's true, right? And then they got the emo word that they use. Emo, queer. The definition of gay has changed because that was totally different before. What's my name? Professional name. But Joe had a better chance. I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. I don't think so. Especially after the debate where Joe came across as like not aware. I was thinking that before, but now not so much. Especially, Biden couldn't attract the crowds that Kamala has. Kamala has ignited the base. There's enthusiasm now. There was not before with Biden. They couldn't get nobody at their freaking rallies. Doc, it says device not connected. Let's go into what's up, Doc?
The cat's like tried to kill my camera. No, I've been Dr. Weird for years. Weird is what they was what the fucking boomers that's what basically anyone that wasn't mainstream was called. They were called weird. And they're trying to bring that back because it was generally the jocks and conservative kind of kids that were calling the artsy kids and stuff like that weird. So they're trying to pull this, we're going to reverse that word because it disturbs them. It's a fucking child's game. Just kind of like the overuse of Let's Go Brandon. It was cute. It was neat. It was funny. Drop it because it's starting to get a little offensive.
Yeah, it's the politics has really gotten more and more childlike. It's like more and more childlike.
I'm not weird. You're weird.
Yeah.
I mean that's the way that was supposed to read earlier.
Okay. It's not.
Yeah, I call it the Napoleon Dynamite defense. No, I'm not. You are.
Yeah. And I was called nerdy and weird when I was young. The academic type, the guy who's reading the books. I was on the swim team.
I turned it into my professional name. It was thrown at me so much. I mean, I got my name because I was a DJ at the local area. I was getting off the bus one day, and the dude kind of always tried to fuck with me. Yells out, "Look, there goes Dr. Weird." And I stopped and I turned around and I went, "Dude, I kind of like that." And then I used it in the show that night. It was a Friday night. I used it in the show. The next night, the owner's son brought me a T-shirt that said "Doctor" on the back. And I kind of have been in Dr. Weird ever since. I mean, there's only two people that call me by my given name, and that's my mom and my girlfriend. Even my brother calls me Doc.
Yeah. It sounds like a comic book name. Like, what's your superpower? Like,
pissing people off.
Let's do some random stuff here. There was a Richter scale 4 earthquake in California recently. Let's look at this.
That's not that bad.
Due for its next big earthquake. On Monday, LA was rocked by a magnitude 4.4 earthquake, and last week, Bakersfield saw a magnitude 5.2. It's been over 20 years since the San Andreas last produced an earthquake greater than magnitude, a 72% chance of a magnitude 6.7 or greater hitting the Bay Area, and a 60% chance for the LA area. And get this, LA has a 31% chance of seeing a 7.5 quake or greater in the same time frame. The Coachella Valley section of the San Andreas is especially overdue and hasn't seen a major earthquake since 1690. This new 2023 USGS map shows that most of SoCal and all of the Bay Area has a greater than 95% chance of seeing a damaging earthquake in the next century. Long story short, California is overdue for a major earthquake. Is California due for its next big earthquake? On Monday, LA was rocked by a magnitude 4.4.
Yeah, so it says an update on all earthquakes in California over the last week. Yeah, so they're due for a big one, basically. Who knows when it'll come? What do y'all think? The main part of the beginning of the show, I was talking about Tampon Tim and all of that. What do y'all think about that?
Well, I think it's that kind of a nickname that catches really well, just like the "Let's Go Brandon" phrase. I think it's going to be overused. It's one of those worded law. I'm going to tell you right now, it's one of those worded laws. While you're saying, you were saying they're all, it doesn't specifically say that, but it also specifically states they must be available to restrooms where they will attend, and then states nothing after that. That's a deliberate ambiguity in the law. And the idea is not that it is going to be used that way, but it can be used that way, which is the exact same argument that the left has been making against a lot of the conservative laws, is going, well, it can be done that way. You know, and I was thinking earlier, somehow it goes back to the whole, it's about the language used in the law and it being ambiguous. And no offense, but you give the left an inch and they run a mile with it. Just like the friggin' Democrats are starting to do, or Republicans are starting to do on the other side of the fucking scale.
Yeah, I just think that it's so much more important stuff to be focusing on. You know, worst case scenario, if there's a tampon in the boys' restroom, like whoop the F and do.
No, the idea is bringing sexuality and stuff like that. And no, it's not a sexual thing. And that's a whole another thing that they're trying to, but you don't understand. You're not giving credit or understanding, even attempting to understand how other people would think about this. I personally don't have a problem. Now, you were talking about the stigma of free lunch. Now, imagine the stigma of a trans male student having to go to a guidance counselor or a teacher or having to go out of the way to get products like that. You know,
I mean,
it's one of those no-win situations because you can't make a law that covers every single instance and covers everybody's feelings at the same time.
Yeah,
personally, like free lunch, I think pads and products should be available to anyone available that needs them. But the problem is, again, even the non-trans girls going to a teacher or having to go to someone and go, yeah, I need one. It's not shameful in any way. But at that age, that's what you feel.
Right.
At that age, bullies and kids are fucking assholes.
Yeah, so it'd make them uncomfortable. But that's the reason why having the dispenser in the bathroom, or like if you have like a unisex bathroom and there's a dispenser in there, you could just grab it without having to go to anyone, then that, you know, that's
Again,
gonna.
no one's arguing with that. What some side is saying is the law does not stop them from going up in male bathrooms, or they doesn't specifically say. Again, you've got your mind made up. You've argued your one side completely. You've left no room for understanding for the other. I'm not going to convince you of this because you're convinced of that being right. I'm not really arguing about stuff like that, but I'm trying to explain there are other ways of thinking about it that don't agree with you. That see that you keep using the word slippery slope law and how that keeps things pushing and pushing and pushing. Slippery slope laws are the things that are also attacking other areas. And if you ignore one in one area, you can't claim to use it in another area. Because that means you're picking and choosing when to use that particular rule. Or when it's a slippery slope. Oh, this slippery slope is okay, but that one is not. That in itself is a slippery slope.
I don't know if I see that one as a slippery slope.
I understand. That's
Pat-
what I said. You can't comprehend it because you don't try to understand the other side anymore. You don't understand. You don't ask where are the arguments coming from. Why? You just go straight to your fact check things, which most even didn't say false, said mostly, and it said that because of the language of that law.
Yeah.
Just
So
like other
interpret.
laws. See, you want to get this specific one, but on 20 other ones, it's been okay, or it's not been okay because that slippery slope leads to this, and then you just go off on all possible things that can happen or possible reasons.
Well, it's not the legislator's job to interpret the law. You know what I mean? So maybe at some point it goes to the courts, or even all the way up to the Supreme Court, and then they can specifically interpret the law to say that unisex bathrooms, the nurse, and women's bathrooms, and not boys' bathrooms. I mean.
Okay, so in other words, you're advocating for tying up the courts more and more and more on post legislation just to push through temporary agendas.
Well, I mean, like I say, the legislator's job is not to interpret
that sounds
law.
very authoritarian to me.
And I don't agree with
this is the
spinning.
way it's going to be until someone else says otherwise.
Well, the laws have to be interpreted. That's the whole thing. And I don't agree with spending any time on this, like, at all. Like, I think it's silly. Pat says instead of using the word weird, they just hit where it hurts. And then he says, why do they have to be in boys' bathroom? And what they're talking about with that,
because of the transphobia laws that were also passed by the same governor. Because
you have
technically all it takes is one person to go, they're not in the I can't have pads, and that means this administration is transphobic. That's the same way they get they've been going around. Another thing they've been doing is going around and getting small mom and pop business owners that have like a step or two going into their place, and then suing them for thousands and thousands of dollars of AMA compliance.
Yeah.
The vagueness opens many lawsuits.
Yeah. So that to answer the question, Pat, is for the one who identifies as a male who has a menstrual cycle, but like in the article that I was reading, in practice, it doesn't necessarily lead to tampons in the boys' restroom.
No, it really doesn't.
But theoretically, the point is that if you have a identifying as male person, they can go to the restroom and grab their menstrual stuff.
It's one of those where the headlines say it says this, and the truth about it is it doesn't really say that, but it doesn't not say that.
Pat says they're going to get harassed when using tampons in the bathroom. That's not a safe space. They're going to get harassed pretty much regardless. Transgender students.
But now they're in a room without cameras.
They get it regardless. I mean, you can leave out the whole tampon thing completely out, and they're still going to be getting harassed by the other kids. Like, that's just how it goes.
So that makes it okay. Because it's going to happen anyway.
Well, I'm not saying that.
That's how bullying got so bad that it became a iconic part of 80s culture and 90s culture. And you want to know something? In my opinion, the kids are fucking more vicious now than they were back then.
I think I would have to agree with you on that one. Pat says, and that's not weird. Pat, there you go, using the weird word. That's exclusively reserved for the people on the left.
Well, see,
the only ones that
how
can
does
use the weird word.
How does that work? You know, the left kind of betrayed me, came after me, but I've always been the weird one.
Yeah. Well, now they have exclusive rights to the words weird. You know, things change. You know, it's kind of like, you know, only certain people can say the N word. You know, that's how it works on the left. The liberals, you know, they that's their tokenism. That's their you know, that's what we get that for reparations or whatever, you know. We get exclusive rights on the N word, and we get exclusive rights on now the word weird. Okay, I'm being sarcastic, so please know that that's what that is.
You motherfuckers ain't gonna take it from me. I'll fight. And I'll do it the way they like. Since you like to tie up the courts so much, I'll sue the fuck out of people that come after my name.
Pat says women, girls have had to be responsible for their own pads and tampons. I don't get it. Well, it's a nice thing, you know. What happens is the girls, they don't know when their cycle is going to start, especially when they're younger. Older women get surprised from time to time, but a teenage girl, she's going to get surprised every now and then when it starts, and you maybe not prepared, and now you're in a situation, you're in a classroom, and you're, you know.
I'm also okay passing out friggin' toothbrushes and toothpaste, deodorant, soap to high school kids, along with food. Tampons are almost as important. That is a more important healthcare item than almost anything else, and anything else that, you know, boys don't have to deal with it, girls do.
Yeah.
And there's already a social stigma in high school about tampon use and menstruation and stuff like that, because one, the girls don't really understand it yet. They're just learning about it. It freaks out the fucking boys. They don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
You know, and all they've heard from their dads all their life, you know, is I can't trust anything that bleeds for 7 days and doesn't die. I mean, it's made a joke out of amongst men. So, yeah, to help comfort this time, there's no reason that something that costs a nickel a piece in bulk or something like that. I mean, yeah, don't set up a situation where they can stuff their purses full of it and things like that, because that's one big problem that will come of this is girls just going in and shoving their purses full of it. Because I see it in clubs where they've got them in the thing in the clubs, and the girls come out with their pocketbooks stuffed full of them.
Yeah.
But, you know, as someone who intends on owning a business one day, and my business being a bar, restaurant, something like that, or a restaurant bar, I intend 100% on installing a quarter machine or something like that on the wall, so women will always have access to it. And it'll even have a sign there that says, "Don't have change? Ask the bartender."
Yeah. So, yeah, you know, you can imagine a situation. You can imagine a situation where a girl's in school and she, you know, has this problem, and it would be really unfortunate that, you know, it's this little thing turns into a big distraction where they can't learn. They may even have to go home. You're walking around with a stain on their clothes or whatever, and the kids are making fun of them.
That's too far. That's too far, man. It's a kindness. It's a kindness that will make a kid's life easier, like free lunch will.
Yeah.
It's something that we as parents should wish for our kids and for other people's kids. It's something that should be put into the budget in schooling, just like fine arts needs to be returned to schools.
I completely
just
agree
like
with you on that.
civics needs to be returned to school. And when I say fine arts, I'm talking about home ec too. I know some people think it's a walk class and stuff like that, and for a lot of people it is. But you'd be surprised. as long as 1 or 2 students every year in that class is actually learning how to cook, learning how to budget, learning how to plan meals, learning how to take care of a house because they've never done it, or they stuff like that or maybe even for the sake of they already know how to do it, and someone that's doing that at home needs a walk class. I think we should put trade classes in any schools that we can again too, first year, or like your last 2 years, and that way we can put you out and be able to step right into an apprentice job somewhere.
I agree.
I believe
in
adding 1 more year to the high school level and
make it
allowing people to choose either a graduation and release path or a associate's or trade degree release path, and that be covered within our schooling.
I would agree with that completely, because we don't set these kids up for success.
Anyone that wants to go further in their education, we should still have the FOSSA programs and stuff like that for, and we should also have the government-backed student loans. The private student loans and shit like that, we need to get rid of that shit.
So Pat says, I'm an independent conservative liberal. Okay. He says, I said that because they didn't care about natural women and girls, but are willing to go out of their way for the trans community. See, this is where the confusion happens with this, because when you push back on legislation like this, what it leads to is the girls not having access to this stuff, because that's the reason why he passed this, is so that the girls can have access to these things without having to pay, So when they make an uproar about this and push back on this, then that's just going to lead them pulling it out completely, and the girls not having access to this. They're not specifying, transgenders being able to receive, the tampons without paying for them. It's all menstruating children.
That's the language they have to use now, because they can't say boys or girls. That's part of what this governor is not liked for by conservatives. He pushed the language agenda, couple of other things. He's one of the ones that if your state does not allow a transgender on their sports team, then you will not compete against them, go to their state to compete, or be they're trying to push all of those out of their divisions.
So speaking of school, I was at HEB the other night and saw this newspaper headline, Houston Chronicle. Can y'all see this? I'm gonna pull up a similar article online. TA lessons accused of preaching. It says state lawmaker says Christian story stated as fact. So, we've had the whole thing where they were talking about what is it? What is the right term? Where they talk about teaching history and they're saying that it's wrong or whatever, making the kids feel uncomfortable. What is it called? I can't think of it right now. So, but then on the other side, you have this religious teaching in school, and you're teaching it in a way that it's fact. Having your faith is one thing.
You have to be a lot more specific about what that was talking.
Yeah,
because you're just saying they're teaching the Christian thing is fact. what Christian thing are they trying to teach as fact is a very important part of this. And no, I personally believe that as far as school goes, Christianity should only be taught as a literature class, not a history class. The literature of the Bible, Old Testament, the literature of the New Testament,
and I'm all the way with that.
And I'm okay with other religions being taught as a literature or a history lesson, but not as a, hi, this is Christian class, love Jesus kind of way.
So I'm going to get into it. Let me address
an academic perspective of the religion, not a, I'm trying to use the right word, but not a religious view of it, but a secular view.
I completely agree with you on that. Pat says, adding a year shouldn't be necessary. The generation before us got schooling that prepared them for the world. Shouldn't be necessary can be an argument, but
the world was different then, no, Pat. You know, you could actually teach any, no offense, but you could actually teach any moron to go out and fix a car. You could teach any of them how to hammer a hole in something that came by on a conveyor line. The world is a lot more complicated now. And the schooling needs to reflect that as well. I mean, if you take a picture of a classroom in like 1924 and 2024, they look almost exactly the same.
Yep.
And you can't tell me that education has gotten better, even though it has. It's hard to understand how it's keeping up when education, the classroom experience for the kids, is literally 3 or 4 generations behind their reality. I mean, it makes it, some kids thrive in it. I liked it. You could give me a book, I would sit in a corner and I would be done with it. You know, I was done reading our textbook normally in the first week or 2 of school. I mean, because I love to read that much. And there's some kids that do, there's some kids that struggle. But some of these kids that struggle can take that same book and put it on an iPad and read that motherfucker just as fast or keep interested in it than they would a book in their hand. And that's something that we haven't acknowledged with education, is the changes in the way people intake information, because we're so worried about making sure everyone can regurgitate these particular points because those are on the national tests and we don't get money.
Yeah. Let me go into this article. I'm going to read some of it because I couldn't find this exact same article, but I have a similar one that y'all can read along with me. But this one, I couldn't find the specific one. So, but it's still by Houston Chronicle. I don't know why I couldn't pull it up, but whatever. So this one, TA lessons accused of preaching. State lawmaker says Christian story stated as fact, by Edward McKinley. It says, a state legislator on Monday suggested the Texas Education Agency removed references to Islam and bolstered mentions of Christianity in a new state-written curriculum that public schools could be incentivized to use in their classrooms. In the Houston Public Education Committee hearing, State Representative James Tallarico said the materials presented Bible stories as straightforward facts that could confuse young kids or alienate children of non-Christian faiths. He noted that a previous definition in state-approved curricula for the word Messiah described it as a savior predicted by ancient Hebrews and believed by Christians to be Jesus, while the new lesson plans say Messiah is a savior sent by God. It says, I can't tell you there's a difference between teaching and preaching In my reading, they are preaching, said Tellerico, an Austin Democrat who used to be a public school teacher and is now studying to become a Christian pastor. Under federal law, schools can teach the Bible as an academic text, but not in a devotional way. In other words, public schools are not Sunday schools. It says the Texas Education Agency drafted the new teaching materials under a state law adopted last year that passed with bipartisan support amid concerns that teachers aren't giving enough support to plan lessons. The agency commissioner, Mike Morath, told committee members that the state lessons focused on teaching children to read, and the references to Christianity were only included to provide additional vocabulary and context for students, rather than to proselytize. Initial data shows that students who pilot curriculum similar to the agency
attempt to gain worshipers.
The agency new K through 5 reading and languages arts lesson plans, which were first published in May, have performed better on state standardized tests than other students. Morath said. There goes the damn tests you were talking about, and that being so important. Let's look at this one, y'all can see with me. This one is Texas lawmakers slam state curriculum teaching Bible lessons in public schools. New state curriculum will remove lessons on world religions and add lessons on Christianity. TEA Commissioner Mike Morath said he didn't see anything unfair about it. By Brooke Kushwa, August 12th, 2024. It'd be nice if it was a video with this.
See, like I say, as long as it's done in an academic manner, I feel like there's no reason why not to use them as elective classes. You know, exploring the text, exploring the history of the religion, stuff like that. I mean, if you're going to do stupid shit like that, why don't you just say, tell you what, why don't we save money by only teaching English classes now and not teaching other foreign languages? I mean, that's the only one they need in America, right?
The caption, it says,
oh, no,
Texas education.
It's the only language they need in anywhere worth going. That's the way they would phrase it.
Yeah. It says Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath is under fire for his introducing proposed Bible lessons into classrooms. One lawmaker claims it violates the U.S. Constitution's separation of church and state by preaching, not teaching. It says a new proposed state curriculum meant to improve Texas public schools is under scrutiny for potential First Amendment violations after removing lessons on world religions like Judaism and Islam and adding early education lessons on Christianity and the Bible. So, yeah, you know, it's okay if you're teaching about Christianity as long as you are teaching about other religions too, I would say. If you're going to exclude Judaism and Islam and, you know, exclusively focus on Christianity, then that's not right. It's going to alienate those kids who aren't Christians.
Well, you know, they're also basing it, you know, it's another one of those open phrases in the Constitution, because technically, unless they try to recruit the kids, it's not establishing a religion.
Yeah.
Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment of religion. Is the actual quote.
They're going crazy about the critical race theory stuff, which doesn't get taught in K through 12 at all, not even undergraduate, and focusing on that and saying that they're indoctrinating the children. You know, this right here would fall under that argument that they're making, talking about indoctrinating their children.
Absolutely. By not giving them the opportunity to explore or at least read the history of other religions, they are excluding it to be the only one, giving them only that way of thought throughout their first 12 years, 13 or 15, 16 years of schooling, 12 years. That the one thing I did for my kid, and a whole lot of Christians really were upset with me, is not only did he read the Bible, and I did have him read the Bible first, both of them, both chapters. I had him read the Catholic Bible, not the King James. The King James was the one that he grew up with. So I had him read the Catholic Bible. And then I had him read the Quran. I had him read about Hinduism, Shinto, any other religion that's major and active. I even, the idea is if your religion is good, it will bring people to it. No matter what they read, no matter what they go through, they will eventually see which one they prefer or which one calls to them. And from there, it's just a matter of discussions of different ones. And the biggest, I'm being very generic on purpose.
Let me read this. State Representative James Tallarico grilled Texas Education Agency Commissioner Mike Morath at the House Committee of Public Education hearing Monday, questioning whether the proposed lessons violated the U.S. Constitution's separation of church and state by preaching, not teaching. Morath, for his part, professed ignorance of any religious inequality in the new curriculum and denied accusations that the curriculum, which came out 4 days after the Texas GOP added Bible lessons to its official 2024 platform, was politically motivated. Since 2023, the TEA has had the power to review the state's public education curriculum and make suggestions to textbook and lesson plan publishers to ensure their appropriateness, quote unquote. The process, called the Instructional Materials Review and Approval process, ties the adoption of this new curriculum to $540 million in additional state funding, meaning any schools that choose to opt out of the state's curriculum lose out on a pretty big chunk of change. The TA commissioner heading the process is appointed by the governor. So that's how they get them to adopt these changes, is by putting money, tying money to it. And you know that these schools are all starving, so.
Yeah, I would not. One of the things I came up with in my education degree when I was writing my my big paper was there's absolutely no reason why the U.S. government can't take the minimum requirements from every single state, except for state history classes, and compile this is what we consider the minimum education standards for your grade levels. And start teaching toward those. I don't have a problem with states, getting more funding from, the federal government if they use those. And this is where it's a good thing for both education and the students, is with the obvious corporate input and things like that they would be allowed to put into the curriculum. It almost guarantees that people coming out of high school will have needed skills and knowledge to fit into the workplace.
Let me read some more of this. It says, when the curriculum first dropped at the end of 2023-2024 school year, The lesson plans proposed Bible lessons for kindergartners raised eyebrows from critics concerned the lessons violated the separation of church and state. Tallarico called the proposed curriculum indoctrination, arguing that kindergarten-age students are too young to engage in theological debates and that public school teachers are not qualified to teach them. Tallarico's line of questioning revolved around whether the new curriculum presented lessons through a strictly Christian lens at the expense of millions of Texas public school students who practice a religion other than Christianity. Tallarico pointed to a kindergarten lesson plan that attributed the Golden Rule, a tenet that appears in multiple religions, to Jesus Christ, and presented Bible stories as fact rather than the beliefs of a particular ideology. I love Jesus with all my heart, but he wasn't the first person to teach the Golden Rule, Tallarico said, adding with both Buddha and Moses preached the value of doing unto others as you would have them done unto you. In my opinion, this teaching violates the Golden Rule. So it says Texas Republicans are trying to force public schools to display the 10 Commandments in every classroom. I told the bill author this bill is not only unconstitutional, and un-American. It's deeply un-Christian. I think I played this clip before in a past show, so I'm gonna move on. It says in another lesson plan.
I'd have to say, technically, by the wording of the Constitution, it's not constitutional. However, I will agree with it being un-American.
It says, let's move on. It says, in another lesson plan for 5th grade students, the state curriculum refers to the Torah and Jewish holy book as the Old Testament, a label that only Christians use to refer to the sacred text. The lesson prompt only asks students to analyze the Old Testament for proof that Jesus Christ is the promised Savior. I was shocked when I read that, Tallarico said. Moving on, Marath would not confirm whether the new curriculum included in any lessons on Islam, Judaism, or other world religion. He noted that the TA was still in the process of making modifications, including incorporating feedback to explicitly mention the separation of church and state in the lesson plans discussed at the First Amendment. The original proposed curriculum did not mention the separation of church and state, Marath confirmed. When asked whether he was concerned that a teacher followed his curriculum could even unintentionally violate the separation of church and state, Marath said he was not concerned. Tallarico then asked why the original bill's language granted teachers immunity from any potential First Amendment violations if they were not concerned about violations. There are a lot of other people in the state of Texas, Marath responded. I can't speak for all of them. Let's just finish it off right here. It says TA reviewers are still in the process of adjusting the proposed curriculum before the changes come to vote this November. State Representative Cody Harris, Charles Cunningham, and Michael Schaefer praised the TA and its work at the hearing on Monday. Schaefer in particular argued that Christianity deserved greater focus in state curriculum because the country was founded on Christian principles. Not true. World religions did not have an equal impact on why we're here today, Schaefer said. Yeah, it's not good. That's what I'll say. Not good, not good, not good. Pretty much regardless of what religion you have, even if you're Christian. Not good. Let's move on from this. Let me close these windows. My internet is going slow right now. I don't know what's that about. Let me see. Let's get some randomness.
It's 7 o'clock. Everybody's getting home from work, jumping online, firing up the TV, firing up the computer, all of that.
Slowing overloading the grid.
We'll be slow for about another 30, 45 minutes. About 8, 9 o'clock, it starts getting back to normal. It's sad. I know that too well.
Let me play this.
It's about the hottest it's ever been. Like, it haven't been this hot.
People working outside are coping with yet
another heat advisory. It takes a toll. Miami-Dade Fire Rescue says it has received 34 heat-related calls from July 29th until today. Broward Fire Rescue says it has had 8 heat-related calls for service so far this month.
National Weather Service will issue a heat advisory when the expected heat index or feels like temperatures are to be 105 degrees or higher for at least 2 hours. Typically, the normal high for this time of the year is around 91 degrees, but this week is a little bit different because we've got some dry Saharan dust overhead. That's going to help squelch our rain chances this week. You add that humidity, that low-level humidity, when our dew points are in the 70s, that makes it feel so much hotter to the skin. You can't sweat. You can't cool off as easily when our dew points are high. So that's why these heat advisories have been issued so many days in a row.
It's very hot. I hate it. I hate Miami weather. It's about the hottest it's ever been.
Yes, it's pretty damn hot. It seems like it's been heat advisory here in Texas like every day this month. It says South Florida is under a heat advisory with temperatures continuing to rise to the mid-90s, but the National Weather Service says the moisture in the air will make the heat index up to 110, making conditions more dangerous. Breaks down what to know about the extreme heat gripping the South of Florida that has some locals saying it's about the hottest it's ever been. I think that, and here in Texas, mandatory water breaks and stuff. We covered that in the show previously. The governor and the GOP has been pushing back against those things, and it's pretty damn horrible given as hot as it is. Like somebody working outside, and then you want to tell me that they can't take a damn water break. Shade break. Get back out there, work on that construction. Let's move on.
Oh, goodness.
Let's do this one.
If you are in America, the UK police commissioner is now threatening to extradite and jail US citizens over online posts. He said, "We're coming after you." And I know it's laughable, really. But he said that if it's only if you post about the UK. So if you, he says, hold on, let me just read it out. He warned that officials will not only be cracking down. Yeah, that's exactly what they did. They literally cracked down on British citizens for commentary on the riots, but on American citizens as well now. We will throw the full force of the law at people, and whether you're in this country committing crimes on the streets or committing crimes from further afield online, I mean, how I'm not sure. We will come after you, the commissioner has said. One key aspect that makes this apparent crackdown on social media particularly shocking to critics is that the British government is threatening. That's not all. If you are in America.
Interesting. It says the UK threatens to extradite and jail Americans for social media posts against the UK. Really? How are you going to pull that off?
Threatening to extradite American citizens from the US to be jailed in the UK for violating their rules about political speech online. And I've got to play you this clip as well. UK government scouring social media to arrest people for sharing harmful riot footage, regardless of intent. That's the key. Listen to this.
People might be sharing simply to warn their friends, but it could be considered an offense because they're amplifying this.
Yeah, so this is one thing that people might do. They might say, hey, look at this, or I'm a commentator. Hey, look what happened. And now listen to the response.
Absolutely, and that's the key message, is that however you think you're acting innocently on social media, whatever platform it is, you're just sharing something for whatever reason, that could potentially be a criminal offense. And look, it's not an idle threat either, because the Crown Prosecution Service were keen to point out that they've made a number of charges in relation to stirring up of rape.
Is that the British government is threatening to extradite American
racial hatred online, one of which this morning was for distributing a recording that could, intending to stir up racial hatred. And so they are actually already bringing charges in relation to this sort of thing. So it's a very, very clear message based in the harsh reality, if you like, that if you do this kind of thing, you are potentially committing a criminal offense.
And they are arresting people. I mean,
stirring up.
So UK authorized authorities threaten extradition jail to U.S. citizens for online posts stoking riots. London's top cop wants Americans extradited over online rumors that led to riots. The head of police is now threatening extradition and jail time to U.S. citizens for online posts allegedly egging on the violence from afar. A Sky News reporter asked London Metropolitan Police Commissioner Mark Rowley about posts made by Elon Musk on the topic. You will be refused bail even if you only watched riots from the sideline, Judge warns. Whether active participant or curious observer, anybody involved in disorder will be locked up, Belfast courts told.
the trial, by the way, £100 for swearing in the street. Yes, if you swear in the street, not that I swear anyway, but you know, I've got nothing against people that do, but if you swear at all and you do it in public, then you will get a £100 fine for doing this. But they are facing a legal challenge over it because they're saying they want to ban behavior that might distress people. It means any one of the 130,000 residents or visitors, if you go to to Kent Coast, you could also be fined for using language or behavior causing or likely to cause harassment, alarm, oh my goodness, or distress to any person. You know, you can imagine that coming out. But I was reading again about.
So, yeah, if you didn't know, the UK has been experiencing unrest about, you know, it was a stabbing that happened and some girls died, 3 little kids, and some other people were stabbed. And online, you know, immediately they said it was like an immigrant who did it, which turns out wasn't true. And it got out of hand and people were rioting in the streets against immigrants as a result of it. So this is the UK trying to, you know, get this under control or whatever, to the point where they're even reaching across the pond, if you will, to the United States and wanting to hold people accountable over here for sharing media posts that can lead to, you know, more rioting and disinformation. Because it was the disinformation posts that led to the people going out there. But, you know, it was a powder keg already. So it wasn't like these people were waiting for something to trigger them. And, you know, they got what they were looking for and went out there and did what they did. A Conundrum posted this. She says, funny people are still trying to accuse me of fear mongering. Go ahead.
No, I'm just. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, let me read this. It says, they're telling me I'm wrong. It wasn't just social media comments. They were arresting for planning attacks. Really, because they are literally arresting people just for watching the riots. They said even an innocent post being shared to warn someone can be criminal. But I'm fear mongering. Well, according to those who support these arrests, this post is criminal. They're trying to fine you for offensive speech, and you think I'm here fear-mongering you. Oh boy, wait until you see what they have in store. One thing, though, you know, I covered in the other show about the deep fakes, you know, and the AI manipulated images and voices or whatever are rampant as hell, you know, and we're in an election year, and it's getting towards the end. It's getting to the nitty-gritty part. And I think that they put those little warnings underneath videos about shocking footage, about COVID misinformation, about global warming stuff, then they should put the same thing, kind of warnings underneath videos that have been AI manipulated, because these deep fakes or whatever, these AI manipulated videos where it makes a politician seem like he's saying something he isn't or whatever, images that aren't real, that can lead people to vote one way or another. I don't think that's cool. I mean, you can't control what people do, and a lot of times people aren't even aware that they're sharing stuff that's completely fake.
Well, I mean, right now we're seeing the hilarious side of it, where the funny people are making videos and stuff like that. But if you actually look and listen to some of these, they're uncanny. I mean, if you don't know what to listen for, you can't tell in some of them. And some of the AI is starting to get really good on the lip syncing too, to where they can lip sync it to what they're saying.
Yeah. So I think that technology is really dangerous. And even when I post online with,
you got to understand
my
though, the government's version of that is like 2 or 3 generations ahead of what we're getting in the public.
Well, whenever I post something, I have to say whether it was AI generated or not. Like, it asks me that, that's one of the little stipulations or whatever. So I don't really understand, like, I'm on YouTube and I'm a nobody. And so I can't post AI manipulated stuff on YouTube without sharing that it was AI manipulated. How come, they can do it on these other social media platforms or whatever without having any kind of stipulation to warn people that that's what the content is? I think it's dangerous, and that's one of the things that they need to hurry up and reel in. I don't know how much longer I'm gonna stay on.
I'm Dhaka, the capital city of Bangladesh, standing in front of the Parliament building behind me, where just some days ago on August 5th, the country saw thousands of protesters storm this building and the Prime Minister's residence, forcing the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to flee the country. This came of violent clashes between student protesters and the police, leading to at least 3 deaths. I'm now speaking to the students, I'm speaking to politicians and experts about what they see in this moment. Across the board, there are many conversations of hope, but I'm also seeing lots of tension points. For one, the political parties are more keen to have the election sooner rather than later. And they say that this interim government has not been popularly elected and therefore does not have the authority to institute the real reform that might be called for. But I'm also hearing from students, experts, and professors that want this interim government to stay in so that they can institute real reform. They say that this moment is different than any other moment of upheaval in Bangladeshi history, of which there are many, because of the fact that the students led the change, not the political party, not the army. So no matter the disagreements, it's clear that the conversation about change is very much in the air. I'm here in Dhaka, the capital.
So amid their jubilation, many of the student protesters who chased Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina from power a week ago were afraid this weekend she was scheming to return with the help of her ally, the country's Chief Justice. So students on Saturday surrounded the High Court, and demanded his resignation, fearing he might overturn the election of the country's new temporary leader. Again, they prevailed. The repeated success of the students over the past weeks, tremendous violence that culminated in Hasina's overthrow, will yield dramatic political and social change, including how Bangladesh elects its leader and how its government, courts, and policies operate. This is interesting to me because you saw how, like, when we had the school protests that happened here in the States and how they reacted to them. And it seemed like a heavy-handed, over-the-top reaction, but I think that they did it for a reason. revolutions start that way with just some students protesting on campus or whatever, and then it spreads and spreads and spreads and gets bigger and bigger and bigger until they can't handle it. So they felt like they needed to squash it right away. They didn't want, something like this to be the result of those protests that were happening in the schools. School is about to start. I start school on Monday, and they're already talking about, trying to keep from the students doing any protesting and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what they're going to do or whatever. I hope it doesn't interfere with my classes, because I'm just trying to get the hell out of there. This is my last semester. Like, I don't want no problems. Like, I mean, I understand all of the political uproar and all of the important stuff happening in the world, but for me, from my perspective, I just want to get my degree done. So, I mean, I hate to be selfish, but please, you guys, don't make it so whereas I can't get my stuff done. I mean, that's just how I'm looking at it. I'm being 100 on that. So, but anyways, this is still pretty damn inspiring here, what is happening in Bangladesh. Let me read some comments. It says, student protests. You call this a student protest? Vandalism, genocide, attacks on minorities. Is that still a peaceful student protest? Another comment, zero reporting about atrocities on Hindu minorities. Another one, our students of Bangladesh have shown the world power of students. Couple more comments. It says, what if same thing happened to America? Another one, this is the most biased news channel I've ever seen. Washington Post. Another one, amazing, student protests always stem from the people hungriest for a better future. I still can't believe unarmed students changed their future with marches and signs. Students in the USA have always been vocal about distribution of government funds, gun violence, and much needed reforms. But they have been treated very unfairly in the past and repeatedly disregarded. I hope this brought them some optimism to rise again. A couple more comments. Death to autocracy. We are so happy we are on our way to establish true democracy. Another one echoes what happened here in Sri Lanka, July 9th, 2022. Power to the people. Another one, peace to Bangladesh. These world events are always connected. That's the reason why I like to cover this stuff, is to get an understanding of the vibe of the world, if you will, the mood of the world, and how global events affect other parts of the world.
Did you do it again? Hey, Kitty.
This one it says, minus the bus route, glitches and some AC falters, Miles calls the first day of school a success. Yeah. Houston Press. It says about 700 Houston ISD kids didn't have their bus routes by this morning, first day of school. A new software system gave out 2 sets of routes to other kids, one right, the other wrong. Air conditioning wasn't 100% in all buildings, so kids were moved from hot to cooler classes. But HISD Superintendent Mike Miles was a happy man overall at his 4 p.m. news conference, saying the classes were in full institutional swing on day one. There were only 28 vacant teaching positions district-wide out of 10,640, none in the new education system schools, and that a warm body count had tallied 180,000 students in class Monday. My daughter said she had subs in multiple classrooms on the first day of school. So I don't know, I guess the substitute counts as a warm body. I mean, I don't know. And I think this is the earliest time that the HSD has come back into school like ever. So yeah, it's a change. Reading on, it said, we had a great day today, a successful day of school. Yes, I'm going to get the bus. I'm going to get to the bus. We have some need for improvements there, but the rest of the day was a very successful day. Who was that quote from? Mike Miles? No comments. Must have turned the comments off. Probably because everybody was like, this is a bunch of BS. It was crazy. It was not orderly.
No, because if the comments were turned off, you wouldn't have had the option to comment.
Well, why is there no comments though?
Because it's a small little release. It was done. Look, 24 likes. Hardly anybody's seen it.
I guess.
It's Houston Press, man. Houston Press lost all of its people that gave a shit about them when they stopped publishing the actual paper. I never go to their website because their paper used to have all the stuff going on around town and things like that. They went out of their way to do articles and the local people would advertise. They don't advertise on their website because their website doesn't get enough traffic. They can for 50% more, they can do Facebook targeted to people looking it up in their zip code.
Yeah, we need more local stuff.
I stopped using Houston Press because I would find out about things going on in town and concerts and who was, like the day it was happening or a day or a week late and find that it was never on them. And they used, like I said, they used to have everything.
Yeah, I remember that. And it was a free newspaper. Is it still free?
Yeah. No, they stopped printing almost 10 years ago.
Let me play this.
After a convicted killer escaped from guards in a hospital parking lot near Durham, North Carolina, running into the woods, still handcuffed and restrained at the waist. He was serving a life sentence for the murder of a child. Here's ABC's Faith Abube.
Tonight, a statewide emergency alert issued in North Carolina after a convicted murderer escaped from armed guards in a hospital parking lot.
An inmate has just run from the hospital.
30-year-old Ramon Alston, described as dangerous with a violent criminal past. Federal and local agencies, including the U.S. Marshal Fugitive Task Force, seen urgently searching the Hillsborough area.
He's either within a 5-mile radius or he's in the rest of the world, and we're searching both.
Authorities say 2 prison guards were transporting Alston to a medical appointment at the hospital this morning when he broke free in the parking lot, pushing down at least 1 guard, then running into a densely wooded area, still handcuffed with a waist chain, but without the leg restraints he was put in before the ride.
They're much like a handcuff, puts pressure against your Achilles, which slows you a good bit. It's uncomfortable. How he got them off, I don't know.
The convicted felon was serving a life sentence for fatally shooting a 1-year-old, Malia Williams, on Christmas Day in 2015. The child struck while in her mother's arms outside.
And David, the Orange County Sheriff says the armed guards who were transporting Alston did not have an opportunity to draw their weapons. As standard procedure, their conduct is now being reviewed as part of this investigation. David.
Faith Abube reporting on this tonight.
So the conduct is being reviewed. So like they didn't shoot and kill the guy. So obviously they messed up, right? Is that what they're trying to say? It says an urgent search is underway in North Carolina for a convicted killer who escaped prison guards in a hospital parking lot. The convicted murderer was serving a life sentence for fatally shooting a 1-year-old girl in 2015. Comments, it says somebody's getting fired. Another one, take him out. Don't let him survive, no matter the color. He killed a child.
No, he killed a 1-year-old. I'm sorry. Put him back in prison.
Another comment, it says...
If you kill him, it'll be over too soon.
Another comment says, he's either in a 5-mile radius or the rest of the world. At least they narrowed it down. I noticed that comment too. He was like, he's either in a 5-mile radius or the rest of the world. We're checking both. Okay, you're looking under every Nick and cranny, huh? Every rock. It says no chance to draw their weapon. What? I would love to see that body cam footage getting away while shackled. Yeah, I wonder what they were doing. They must have had their thumbs in the butts. Says this is why they need to execute as soon as they are sentenced.
See, I love this. If they had shot the dude, you'd be bitching about them shooting while he was fucking handcuffed and everything, and he wasn't a threat.
Yeah, I don't think that they should have shot.
And now it's like
I don't think that they should shoot him. No,
now I don't mind this guy being removed. I mean, he killed a 1-year-old baby. But like I said, I'm all for putting him back in prison, because somewhere in prison they're going to be, oh, you thought you were going to get away from this.
Yeah, I don't agree with them shooting him, but it's like, what the hell were they doing? This guy's got shackles on his legs, and somehow he was able to get them. Like, what the hell were y'all doing, bro? Another comment, it says, this is why they need to execute as soon as they are sentenced. Why wait? Take this as an example, how much resources spent. Whatever, bro. Moving on.
If there's a possible chance of reasonable doubt, they need to be allowed to explore that avenue.
Yeah. Appeals. People make mistakes. People are wrongly convicted all the time. Another comment says, I want a search of every house, outhouse, and doghouse. Another comment, that poor mother having to learn of this. Another comment, maybe we should start implanting permanent tamper-proof bone tracker chips on high-profile inmates just in case. Wow, that's pretty extensive. Another comment says, how far does he think he will make it? Yeah, well, people don't think when they do stuff like that. So, yeah, he's most likely he's not.
We could put the tracker with about 20 grains of gunpowder right there at the base of the skull, That way, if they run off, all you do is hit a button, right? I saw that movie, too.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have a problem with them injecting like a radioactive process or something like that lasts a couple of days, if they're going to take them to a place like out of the thing to the hospital, or give them an extra when they have a high possibility of escape. You do a radium tracker in there. They can fucking just he's going to glow. It doesn't hurt him. You pee it out of your system after a couple of days, but you can be pinged by satellite easily and found because of your radiation frequency or whatever.
It says,
again, you see it in movies all the time.
Mm-hmm. It says an armed guard didn't have time to draw his weapon. You don't ever leave them alone. Something isn't right in this situation. There's something weird about this one. Dude is shackled on the legs and somehow got away. I don't know.
No, he did not have leg shackles. He got out of his leg shackles. He only had the waist and the hands.
It's still kind of weird.
Why are you terrorizing me, Kat?
Former President Donald Trump is now using one of his favorite tools, social media, to pull the political spotlight back his way. And he kicked off the effort with an online chat with billionaire Elon Musk.
I think you should support Donald Trump for president.
Well, I want to thank you.
The 2-hour dialogue with Musk was delayed by technical difficulties.
You've done an amazing job. You have definitely got a fertile mind.
Trump's allies say he recognizes the impact of being on X, especially as he looks to energize his core supporters who have been following his social postings since he rose to the presidency in 2016. But there is no guarantee an X exchange will provide a political boost. Sources close to the Trump campaign tell CBS News that privately, some aides and donors are increasingly on edge about Trump's ability to adapt to the new dynamics since President Biden exited the race.
Biden actually did something that was impossible. Both sides hate him. You know, both sides. That was a hard thing to do. Unification.
And some Trump associates are voicing frustration that more needs to be done to better define Vice President Kamala Harris as a liberal. And sources say some confidants have urged him to concentrate on policy attacks, not personal ones. Whether that happens remains to be seen, as Trump is ramping up his campaign schedule, with a rally Wednesday in Asheville, North Carolina, slated to focus on the economy, before rallying supporters on Saturday in northeastern Pennsylvania, 2 days before the Democratic National Convention. Harris, meanwhile, is scheduled to unveil her economic agenda this Friday in North Carolina. And today, her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, defended his military record.
I'm going to say it again as clearly as I can. I am damn proud of my service to this country.
And there is a new standoff with political implications. The United Auto Workers has filed federal label charges against Elon Musk and former President Trump after they spoke about striking workers last night. UAW leader Shawn Fain just told me their remarks were intimidating. The Trump campaign has called the suit a political stunt. Major?
Robert, we also have some new details on key speakers, at least initially announced for the Democratic National Convention.
President Biden will have his big moment on Monday evening. So will former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, followed Tuesday by former President Barack Obama. Former President Bill Clinton will also be in Chicago. Then the big ones, Governor Walz and Vice President Harris.
Robert Costa, thanks so very much.
Obama gets his own day. It was Nancy Pelosi was missing. Anyway, so Trump is back on Twitter. Apparently, him and Elon Musk had a love fest. I have that clip. I don't know if I want to play. It's too long, and I don't know which parts to play. It says, with fewer than 90 days until Election Day, sources close to the Trump campaign tell CBS News some confidants are urging the former president to focus on policy over personal attacks against Kamala Harris. The vice president will unveil her economic agenda Friday in North Carolina. So, yeah, it would, policy over personal attacks would be a good way to go, I would say. At the very least, it'll get the American people talking about the policies,
Yeah, but Trump can't do it because he can't resist the chance to talk shit to somebody or about somebody.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I always called him a jackass.
Yeah. And it's effective for him, though. It works. I think that's why he keeps doing it, because it works. The conversation shifts from policies to personalities, and then we go back to this identity politics arguments, and he's pretty much going to win that if it goes to identity politics, then he wins. Because he's the big identity. He's the big personality, strong man. Comments, it says, personal attacks are all he knows. Another one, I don't care if you're a conservative or a liberal, bragging about firing striking workers is fundamentally anti-working class and not something a major presidential candidate should be engaging in. Another one, he doesn't know anything about policies. Another one, blew us all the way. We're sick of Trump. He should be behind bars. Those
you gotta
comments are
remember though
old.
too. What Elon did is he didn't fire striking workers. When he bought the company, workers got together and said, well, we don't want you to take over the company. And he was like, okay, then don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really... I think that's more of a protest than it was a strike. And it was about something that really couldn't, there's other things too. There's another one that I don't know about X2 where some people struck, and I can't remember what it was, but I mean, that's not what he went in and did, like the conversation said. Like it was made, like it sounded. again, another one of those things that 45 is very famous for. The way he says shit, you just want to shake your head and go, "Oh God." He should have really said that in his head and listened to it before he said it out loud.
Yeah, I think that's a thing with him, a lot of cases, and people defend him all the time. And I'm like, bro, I mean, he's running for president. He should be a little more careful, because sometimes I think that he doesn't even intend on it, being what it sounds like. I really don't. In some cases, he says what's on his mind, which is good. But
he's a boardroom person, not a fucking speech giver.
Right. He's so he just needs to think a little bit more and be a little bit more careful of his word choices, because they're going to use it every little slip.
He needs to stop going off on a tangent, like trying to explain something when he doesn't understand it himself entirely.
Yeah.
That's how that's how all of a sudden he told people to inject bleach, and they did.
Yeah.
The president said if you stick LED lights up your ass, that it'll cure COVID. Ha!
Yeah. Again, at the same time, he's just got to be more careful of his word choices. What is Garland, the comedian? He says, he's like, think about how stupid the stupidest person is, and then he's like, no, he said, think about how stupid the average person is. And then he says, realize that 50% of them are stupider than that. That line is like, I don't know why that joke stays in my mind forever. Like every now and then that joke comes to my mind.
George Carlin is someone you need to go back to the very beginning of his career and listen to his comedy in order if you can.
Yeah.
From the beginning to the end. Don't jump around in it. And you can see how it's the same theme, but how it grows.
Yeah. Yeah. So Trump needs to keep in mind that the average person, doesn't know a lot of things. So he needs to be careful about the word choices.
Declared war on Israel. You cannot sit here and justify the claim.
It's the bad thing is I know people like that, so my brain translates his babble into what he's actually saying.
Yeah, I think intelligent folks do that. Like we automatically do that. It's like when I'm reading people's comments, I make adjustments as I'm reading the comments to what I figure they were intended to say. You know what I mean? Looking past the typos or whatever, but not everybody does that, bro. Like people just take it for what it is on its face. It's like when I'm texting someone and then they're, how the autocorrect changes a word or whatever, and then the person texts back, only one word changed, and then they're like question mark. It's like, bro, you couldn't freaking figure out what the hell I was saying just because sometimes one word can change the whole meaning of a sentence or whatever, but most of the time it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. I know you know what the hell I said. Like that frustrates the crap out of me. Like it makes me angry, bro. Like I'm sorry the damn thing changed, after I sent it or whatever, or the moment I hit send,
It's why we hated texting on the fucking flip phones in the first place, because it took too fucking long.
Yeah.
Now I don't want to have to. It's a typo. Either deal with it, or if you really don't know, cool, I will explain it to you. But I'm probably going to communicate with you a lot less afterwards.
Because it's too frustrating to have to explain every damn little fucking typo or every little autocorrect that happens. I don't have the patience for that shit. Like, please try to get it.
I also respond after a mess up. I also respond. Autocorrect is my worst enema.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like, bro, because sometimes you don't even see it, because once I hit send, I don't read the text that I sent. You know what I mean? Most of the time I don't, unless we're doing like a thread and I'm like, okay, what are we talking about here or something, like kind of revisit it. But if that's not the case, I'm not even gonna see that it auto corrected it. You know what I mean? I'm not even gonna see that. Man, come on, man. It says Monday breaks the record for the hottest ever day on Earth. AP News. It says Monday was recorded as the hottest day ever globally, beating a record set the day before, as countries around the world, from Japan to Bolivia to the United States, continue to feel the heat, according to the European Climate Change Service. Provisional satellite data published by Copernicus showed that Monday broke Sunday's record by 0.06 degrees Celsius. Climate scientists say the world is now as warm as it was 125,000 years ago because of human-caused climate change. While they cannot be certain that Monday was the very hottest day throughout that period, average temperatures have not been this high since long before humans developed agriculture. The temperature rise in recent decades is in line with what climate scientists projected would happen if humans kept burning fossil fuels at an increased rate. Comments. It says, so if it was that hot 125,000 years ago, humans are not causation. That's kind of that's a fair argument right there. Another comment. It says, my 9-year-old could write a better headline. Yeah, the headline is a little off. It confused me when I was reading it. I had to stutter in it. Another comment. At the same time, climate activists received record prison sentences in the UK. Insanity. What? Oh, okay. I get what they're saying. All right. Another comment says, how can we track data from 125,000 years ago? They have ways, bro. You'd be surprised. Okay. The vegetation, stuff like that, like how they do those ice cores that they do. They can get the air bubbles from the ice and tell you how much carbon dioxide was in the air. All of this fucking data, bro. Like, it's pretty amazing. The permafrost and all of that, like, they can look at that and it could tell them a whole lot of data. So you'd be surprised. Another comment, we're so effed. Imagine being homeless now. I'm telling you, man. I'm feeling for the homeless people. Like, you, whether you believe in climate change or not, you know, even if you're a homeless person and you believe in climate change or not, you're out there in that heat dealing with that shit. That sucks. When I walk into my apartment, I'm like relieved the moment I walk in. I'm like, oh, I exhale breath. I'm like, bro, don't know what I would do if I had to be out there for longer. And at my job, we have a patio area, and it's like covered and with fans or whatever. But man, it's hot, and you know we have to work out there sometimes, and that really sucks. When I come home, I'm like immediately got to get into a shower. I feel icky, like I can feel the salt on my skin. I feel like, you know, that's why I wait tables, bro. I don't want to work outside, bro. I don't want to do construction and do like labor, bro. Like, I've never been that guy. Like, people touch my hands and they're like, oh, they're so soft. I mean, like, you know, one of the reasons why is because I'm like hyperhidrosis and my hands are always wet. So, but another reason why is because I haven't really done very much really hard labor, bro. Like, I mean, I working a drill or whatever, but like, and when I was a kid, you know, I had people in the country and we would go out there and help them out. They always had something to do. Like, the hardest work I've done, I think, is post hole digging. And I don't know if any of you out there have dug post holes. Maybe it doesn't sound like much, but bro, bruh, that's work. And so, you know, and there was another time where I worked with my dad and we had to put together these big, huge tires that they use for irrigation. Bro, I'm not that guy, bro. I'm not that guy to do. And my dad did construction at a time, and he taught me, I know how to handle a hammer. even though you don't really use hammers anymore nowadays, very little. But I know how to handle a hammer and nails and wood, cut wood, and all that kind of stuff. But man, I'm not that guy. I don't want to be out there in that. I feel for these people. Comment, it says, impossible. We have been keeping these weather records for 150 years or so. Another comment, there's no global warming. It's fake news. So drill, baby, drill, as Trump says. Another comment says, hottest day so far. Another comment says, we will drill, baby, drill. Trump, July 19th, 2024. Another comment, because this planet is populated by money and power-hungry creatures. Another comment, I doubt the heat we feel now was ever hotter than when the earth was a floating lava rock. Okay, but hey, there wasn't no life either at that time. Try living on a floating lava rock. Let me know how that goes for you. Another comment says, take that, other planets. We're number one. So the whole thing is about how our lives are and the adjustments that we need to make. Whether you believe in global warming as human-caused climate change or not, you know, the fact of the reality is that it's heating up and we're going through a heating cycle. Now, that we need to accept. So we accept that reality and we make adjustments, and that's what needs to be done for us to, you know, continue to thrive on this planet. Otherwise, we're not. So that's just a thing. You know, and even besides that, you want to think about pollution and the amount of trees and vegetation, you know, as opposed to concrete and streets and glass buildings. You want to think about building your cities differently. You want to think about your commute and doing that differently. You know, that's the way we should be thinking into the future for the children. Build an infrastructure for them, you know, so things can be better for them. I was seeing a story about how because of the Chevron doctrine that they overturned, it's starting to have repercussions. And it was like, I want to say it was the U.S. Air Force, like letting out these pollutants into the water. And they were saying, you know, we don't have to clean it up because of the Chevron doctrine. So y'all just get over it. And, you know, in the Olympics, they had an issue in the Olympics because you had swimmers who, like, they had to delay it because the water was toxic. Somebody got sick. I want to say somebody died as a result of the freaking pollution in the damn water. Like, regardless, you can not believe in climate change or whatever, but putting just using the ocean as a toilet, you know, that is not sustainable. This many people on the planet with these big ass corporations, with this, all those chemicals that we use.
Over the past 2 weeks, Britain has seen its worst civil unrest in over a decade. Anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim riots swept the country after 3 young girls were killed in a stabbing attack on July 29th. Within hours of the attack, false information saying the assailant was a Muslim illegal immigrant circulated on X and was shared by prominent far-right figures.
If you've got a platform that doesn't see it as important to remove this kind of material, then this is likely to have long-term impacts on the quality of public life.
Even after the police confirmed the assailant was a 17-year-old born in Wales, the post, tacked with community notes debunking the false information, went viral.
People want to participate because they feel like they're part of something bigger.
Violence to this degree is rare in the UK, but hostility towards public authorities and anti-migrant rhetorics have risen. Mobs attacked mosques, small businesses, and hotels sheltering asylum seekers across the country.
Quite often what we hear is people get involved because of reasons that maybe they're not even aware of, but actually then they develop these layers of justification, and that gradually turns into a narrative, which might eventually turn into a sort of a worldview.
Thousands of riot police have been deployed and hundreds have been arrested and charged. Counter-demonstrators have rallied across the country, denouncing racism and protecting refugee and immigration centers. Over the past 2 weeks, Britain has seen its worst.
So, Washington Post, over the past 2 weeks, Britain has seen the worst civil unrest in over a decade. Here's how anti-immigrant and anti-Muslim riots swept the country. Comments, it says, never underestimate the power of an uneducated mob. Man, mobs, groups scare the crap out of me, bro. Like, that's the scariest thing. I mentioned it before in the show, how the Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I saw it when I was a little kid, and the part where they turn around and point to them. Man, I mean, it seems like that wouldn't be that scary, but for me, I felt it. Like, I really felt it. Like, I always felt like an outsider. I always felt like I don't fit in, and I'm always like worried that the crowd is gonna turn on me. Like, I still feel that way to this day, and so that scene in that movie scared the crap out of me, man. I avoid large crowds. Once I see like the biggest crowds that I've been in is like the first week of the rodeo, you know, and I've done that a couple of times, and like my anxiety goes through the roof. You know, I want to give experience to the kids or whatever, so that's why I do it. A rodeo is a big deal here in Texas, and you know, it's the coolest carnival that ever comes through is the rodeo carnival, and just the experience of the rodeo is so like a thing that I think at least every Texan should do at least one time, you know. But bro, the crowds, and I always run into somebody I know, like, because it's so many people, bro. Like, the whole city coast comes out. Parking is always a nightmare. Comments, it says the UK has had a history of colonizing and destabilizing other nations for decades. They cannot be mad at the refugees they've created. Another comment, Brexit was an abject failure, so now they use violence. Yeah, Brexit didn't have the intended effects. I think a lot of the people who voted for Brexit is regretting voting for Brexit. It was really cool how the European Union was, and the way that the people could move and the currencies could move, and products and services could move throughout those countries. That was a good thing for them. So building more walls is never a good thing. And that's what Brexit did. It built like invisible walls. And that's what a lot of these borders are. They're like invisible walls separating people. Comments, it says, ex-owner Musk has zero credibility, conscience, or empathy. What is the connection? Why do they keep on bringing him up related to this? Is it because of the stuff that people are sharing on X? Like, I don't know, bro. Like, he wants to have like a freedom of speech deal. Like, that's his deal. And I mean, you can't have it both ways. You know, you either have freedom of speech and allow people to share what they think is true, regardless of what it is or in their feelings and stuff, or not. Like, there's no in between with that. So, you know, you got the good side of freedom of speech, and then you have the bad sides of freedom of speech. You can't, you know, have one without the other. So I don't know that blaming Elon Musk for that is fair. Another comment says, why is Elon Musk not being held criminally liable for this? Again, I don't see how that would work. You know, the people are sharing stuff. It's not Elon Musk. I mean, if his platform shut down all the people sharing this stuff, then you'd complain about that. So, you know, I think you want to focus on the underlying animosities, the underlying feelings that lead to people, you know, feeling the way that they feel. And I think a lot of it has to do with economics. It always comes back to economics. If people were living good, then they wouldn't be looking for a scapegoat to blame. Comments, it says, but Islam is a religion of peace, they said. That's a silly comment because it wasn't Muslims out there who were rioting. They were the ones subject to the violence. Oh man, I think I'm gonna get out of here because I'm tired, y'all. There's a lot of really cool stuff in here, though. Is this the one about, let me see. Workers could decide this election. It says they're not buying the Working Class Act Trump advance or selling. Donald Trump is a scab, one worker told us. And on Trump's criticism, Sean Payne, Trump anti-union, he said strikers should be fired. I don't know if they really can decide the election, but oh yeah, Ilhan Omar won her election despite AIPAC. That is news. Maybe at the end of the day, Cori Bush wasn't as popular as she thought she was. But I don't like the idea of a foreign nation having that much impact over our election. So, and I think if it was any other country other than Israel, that people will be up in arms about it. You got the deal. Ukraine has taken territory in Russia. Let's play this.
It's the biggest foreign incursion into Russia since World War II. And for Vladimir Putin and the Russian army, it's a humiliation. Russian soldiers taken captive in their own country, a former superpower, and driven blindfolded into Ukraine. More than 2 years after Putin ordered his military to invade Ukraine, a war that's killed at least tens of thousands and perhaps many more, Ukraine says it now controls nearly 400 square miles of Russian territory. The Ukrainian soldiers launched their surprise attack a week ago. And Moscow claims it's now repelling their advance. But it's Russians evacuating their homes, more than 100,000 of them, some now forced to live in tents. Let them feel what we feel, said this Ukrainian man who lives near the border. Let them live in our skin. Throughout this war, Ukraine has launched aerial attacks on Russia, while armed Russian exile groups have used Ukraine as a base for their assaults. But this is the first time Ukrainian forces have gone on the counterattack inside Russia on this scale. For the Ukrainians, it's leverage. Russia's occupying around 20% of their country, and they want it back. Russia needs to be forced into peace, said Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. Russia brought war to others, and now it's coming back home. Holly Williams, CBS News, London.
So it says Ukraine says it controls more than 70 Russian towns that span nearly 400 square miles of Russian territory. After soldiers launched a surprise attack last week, Ukraine's President Zelensky said Russia needs to be forced into peace. comments. It says, I hope Zelensky uses this win as a bargaining chip, and I hope Ukraine invades more to have a bigger chip to bargain with. Says, Slava Ukraine, another one, don't be fooled by fake media. Another one, bring the peace to the table to the allies and nations. Another one, just look at the size of two countries that are fighting. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. Yeah, they're going to run out of people. Like, Russia got a lot of people. It's kind of like us fighting against China. Like, got a lot of people. It says Sylvester Turner wins Democratic nomination to succeed the late Sheila Jackson Lee in Congress. So he still has to do the actual election, but this district always votes Democrat. So he's pretty much a shoo-in. Winning the primary in that district means most likely he's going to get the seat. It would be really surprising if he didn't. So it says former Mayor Sylvester Turner has won the Democratic nomination for the state 18th Congressional District during an election for the seat formerly held by late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Will take place November 5th. Turner will be running against Republican candidate Lana Cantonze. Couple comments. It says, why y'all dogging this man? During Harvey, his response was top notch. Houston is still a disaster from Beryl. He would have had us together, I believe. Let me know if I'm missing something. Well, CenterPoint Energy was the problem. You know, I was reading about how like other states hardened their infrastructure related to power from previous hurricanes and stuff, and Texas did not. And we had all of these really old light poles that snapped and broke during the Hurricane Beryl. So yeah, Texas wasn't prepared properly. Well, specifically CenterPoint Energy wasn't prepared. So that's an argument for busting up that company. Now I saw another story where they're going to pass on. We knew this was going to happen. They're going to pass on all of their losses onto their customers. So you can expect an increase in your electricity bill over the next 5 years to cover for the money CenterPoint lost, which it was their fault in the first place because they didn't upgrade their infrastructure to be prepared for storms, stronger storms or whatever. Even though the city or the state, I think it was the city, gave them like $300 million and they spent it on generators and stuff. And it's like, come on, man. It is what it is. Texas is a trip when it comes to this kind of stuff. We're like the captain. We're like the poster child for deregulation and allowing the corporations to do whatever the hell they want to do, make as much money as they can at the expense of the people and the safety of the people. The most people who died as a result of Hurricane Beryl was heat-related deaths, which were avoidable. They don't care about the people. Starbucks just abruptly ousted its CEO and replaced it with Chipotle's anti-union CEO. Dun, dun, dun. What's happening? Starbucks has abruptly ousted its CEO who approved negotiations on a landmark labor contract with Starbucks workers. His replacement is Chipotle CEO Brian Niccol, who has fought unions aggressively and said he's disappointed to see employees organize. Sad situation for Starbucks workers. It says Starbucks has abruptly ousted its CEO who approved negotiations on a landmark labor contract with Starbucks workers. His replacement, Chipotle CEO Brian Niccol, has fought unions aggressively and said he's disappointed to see employees organize. Comments, it says the shape of this dude's head hella throws me off. It's weird how the comments just hone in on the randomest things. Comment, it says, in this late stage capitalism hellscape, our buying power is the only voice against these companies. Fast food started dropping prices. We can and should put the squeeze on unethical corporations. I completely agree with that. You know, your vote isn't going to have any impact on this kind of thing. You know, what do they say? Vote with your dollar. You know, Starbucks is already way overpriced and over like valued and over like it's I guess it's the luxury of it, right? It's the logo, the Starbucks logo on your cup. You know, it gives you like this status or whatever. Get your coffee from the gas station, way cheaper and probably about the same. Or just make it at home.
Gas station coffee tastes like ass, dude. You know that.
Depending on the gas station you go to, I just completely disagree.
No, because even those ones that look all fancy and stuff like that still taste bad.
I disagree. So you're saying Starbucks coffee is worth the freaking $8 a cup?
Did I say that? I just said gas station coffee tastes like ass.
I disagree. I went and got some coffee from the gas station earlier today. Here's the cup right here. It was delicious. And it was $2.
Yeah, and you like McDonald's too.
Not really. I mean, I do. I ain't gonna be. Sometimes I will eat McDonald's. I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes I will eat it. It's not the best, but hey, sometimes you're on a budget and you know the real reason why I go to McDonald's is because they're fast, and I only have a certain amount of time sometimes, and I just be like, boom. I know McDonald's is gonna be fast. Let's go ahead and hit them up. Oh, I mentioned this earlier. It says Air Force dodges PFAS water cleanup in Arizona, citing Supreme Court Chevron ruling. The floodgates begin to open, said one observer. The U.S. Air Force refuses to clean up their toxic chemical contamination, citing the termination of the Chevron doctrine by the corrupt Supreme Court. Common Dreams posted this. The United States Air Force has so far refused to comply with an Environmental Protection Agency order to develop and clean up plan for drinking water in Tucson, Tucson, citing the U.S. Supreme Court's June ruling that overturned the Chevron doctrine, The Guardian reported Monday. Air Force bases contributed to the contamination of the drinking water with toxic per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, often known as forever chemicals, because they accumulate in the body, breaking down only very slowly. The compounds, which were introduced by chemical companies in the mid-20th century, are associated with a wide range of serious health conditions, including cancer. In late May, the EPA ordered the Air Force and Arizona Air National Guard to clean up the PFAS contamination of groundwater at a 10-square site in Tucson, giving them 60 days to develop a plan. In late June, the Supreme Court eliminated the Chevron doctrine, also called Chevron deference, which gave federal agencies latitude to interpret laws and establish regulations, required judges to generally defer to their expert judgment. The landmark ruling, brought by the court's right-wing majority, cut away at the executive branch's ability to regulate pollution. Progressive advocates warned that it would lead to corporate-backed legal challenges to environmental and health rules. As it turns out, corporations were not the only organizations ready to take advantage of the ruling. On July 18th, the Air Force's lawyers wrote to the EPA arguing that the May order should be withdrawn due to the elimination of the Chevron doctrine. Arizona Public Media Services reported that the Air Force formally requested that the order be dropped. Here you go. It says the Air Force challenge is unique one in that it pits one arm of the U.S. executive branch against another and won't go to the courts, but both scientists and legal experts warned that it could be a sign of hard-nosed approach that the polluters could take following the Chevron ruling that favors them. Yep, here we go. That's going to open a whole can of worms, and this is already starting. Comment, it says, I thought the Air Force was supposed to kill our enemies. Another one, overturning Chevron will be utterly devastating for all of us. Another one, as if our water quality wasn't already bad enough in Arizona. Another one, proud Trump, Chevron, and SCOTUS. Of course you are. Oh, the UAW comments. Let's do it.
Watching or informed about the comments made by Musk and Trump, and you decide to file these federal labor charges. What was behind the decision and to do it so quickly?
Look, because this is the problem in America right now. The rich keep getting richer at the expense of the working class. And people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they sneer at labor law, but they don't care about labor law because they don't care about working class people. They believe in buying off the system and buying off politicians and being able to have their way with people. And, look, employers need to be held accountable in this country when they break the law. It is a federal right of workers to go on strike, and they cannot be fired for that. But, people like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they laugh about firing people because they can care less about people and about their jobs and what they do to their careers. All they care about is the billionaire buddies and taking more wealth. And so this is a which side are you on election. And that's why working class people will vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because they're one of us. And Donald Trump and Elon Musk represent everything that this nation stands against.
So tell me about the decision to do this. You're either watching or informed about the comments made by Musk and Trump.
So it says UAW filed federal labor charges against Donald Trump and Elon Musk just one day after their interview on X, accusing them of trying to intimidate and threaten when they advocate for the firing of striking workers. UAW President Shawn Fain explains the decision to file the charges so fast. People like Donald Trump and Elon Musk, they sneer at labor law, but they don't care about labor law because they don't care about working people. Yeah, the suit is probably not going to do anything, but it is political. It will draw attention. Blinken approves sale for more than $20 billion in arms to Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has approved the sale of military equipment, including fighter jets, to Israel that are worth more than $20 billion. The announcement by the Pentagon comes despite mounting death toll in Gaza as the U.S. President Joe Biden administration pushes for a ceasefire deal. Earlier this week, Washington released $3.5 billion to Israel to spend on U.S. weapons and military equipment in line with Congress legislation. And, this is why this part is what a lot of people don't understand, why both sides are always, on board with this, the Republicans and the Democrats, because this money goes to American companies. And I know that people get confused with this, but clearly reading this, approved the sale of military equipment. Washington released $3.5 billion to Israel to spend on U.S. weapons and military equipment. So yeah, the money, it's like, the tax money, it's like the government, and then the money goes into private hands, and those private hands are U.S. companies. That's what people have to understand about this thing. And that's the reason why, the United States, we produce arms. I think it's our biggest manufacturing thing that we have here in the States. And so the Congress are always going to be on board with that because they're always looking out for American corporations. And also it's like, what do they call it? Rugged capitalism for the individual, but socialism for the corporations. It's kind of like how it goes. Like everybody wants those government contracts. It's the best damn contract you could freaking get. It's guaranteed money. And then the money comes out of thin air, basically. Like big, huge check, bro. Like, okay, some kids in another country is gonna die, man. I'm gonna get a bonus. I'm gonna get $1 million bonus next quarter. Venezuela elections. I pretty much covered a lot of that. I'm gonna get out of here because I'm tired, y'all. Peace and love. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for joining. I got to go.